2 flags. Look at this. That's awesome. You can put another right over here. That's awesome. Okay. All right, it's 8:30, so we'll get started. Ladies and gentlemen, if we'd please rise, we'll open in Pledge of Allegiance and then prayer, and then we'll take the roll. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Representative Harold.
If you wouldn't mind, we're going to stand again. You're getting your exercise in. I think there's one thing I love about the legislature is we stand when we pray. There's an honor that we bring when we go before our King. So God, we just come right now and we thank you for the opportunity that we have to come and do the people's work once again. God, today as we go through these interim topics and we discuss what the committees are going to do over the next year, God, I just pray that we would have wisdom. God, I pray everything that's meant to be done this year would be done, God, and those things that do not need to happen at this point in time, God, would fall off that list. God, I pray that as we hear people's hearts and we see the situations from around the state, God, I pray that we would have open minds and empathy for what's going on, God. There's a lot happening in this great state. God, I pray that as we make these decisions that we would see that we are making decisions for not only us, but the generations after us. The decisions we make today will echo into eternity. So God, I pray that we would have wisdom as we make those, that we would take this weight seriously, and that you would lead and guide the conversations that have taken place today. We pray these things in Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Thank you, Representative Haroldson. Okay, take the roll.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. For Management Council, April 8th, 2025, Senator Crago. Senator Guru. Senator Nethercott. Senator Salazar. Representative Baer.
Here.
Representative Haroldson.
Here.
Representative Heiner.
Here.
Representative Yin.
Here.
Vice Chairman Beitman. Chairman Nyman.
Here.
You have a quorum.
Thank you, Ashley. I would like to also appreciate the good vice chair or co-chair. I'd like to call him co-chair. I'd like to open the floor to Senator Beitman if he would have any thoughts or like to share anything with the group before we get underway.
Let's get to work.
Like it. All right, we do have a very large schedule today. We have a lot on our plate, as you can well see from our itinerary. There will be a lot of things discussed here today, so I would guess, without further ado, Matt Obrecht.
Mr. Chairman, thanks. Matt Obrecht, Director of LSO. And before we start hearing from the chairman, I'd like to trot out these two statistics that we've got there. Ashley put them at the end of this first agenda item under the interim topic proposals, but it's the LSO drafts and interim committee staffing statistics and the interim committee bill statistics. And the first one, the LSO drafts and interim committee staffing statistics, go back to 1997 through this session actually, and you can see the total bill requests and then the number of committee bills requested, the percentage, the number of committees that we staffed, and you'll have a direct role in that today. You'll create.
Matt, I don't mean to interrupt, but where are we looking at here? I'm not saying that.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, it's actually at the end of your material.
Okay.
For agenda item 2.
There we go.
Okay.
Thank you. Please proceed.
You bet. All right. So we've got the number of committees that have been staffed each year. You'll notice that we kind of hit a high water mark on those number of committees staffed in about the 2015 to 2020 period. Started going down after that. What we were having right in that period was the renovation of the Capitol. And so we had a lot more committee meetings that involved the Capitol renovation. and different task forces. And you know, you'll see that it's kind of a cyclical thing, that the numbers of committee staff, committee days go up and down. And really, it depends on how much LSO complains about it, and then also your own tolerance for, you know, having too much to do as a legislature. So just keep that in mind as you work today on these interim topics and on thinking about creating select committees or task forces. They have a real effect, not only on staff, but on members' ability to serve and to get their other work done. Mr. Chairman, the other handout is the interim committee bill statistics from 2000 through 2025. The number of bills that, committee bills that have been numbered, introduced, enacted, and then the percentage of the numbered bills that were introduced, numbered bills interacted, and introduced bills that were enacted. So, Mr. Chairman, I don't know if there's really any takeaway I want you to see from that, except that number of committee bills have really continued to rise from about 2013 on, but there's no clear linear takeaway there. Your committees are busy, and I suppose they'll continue to be this interim. I think that's all I have, Mr. Chairman. I can take any questions.
Thank you, Matt. Are there any questions for Mr. Oberg? Representative Guru, I'm about to get this started right. Senator Guru, please.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Matt, good morning. If you could just kind of illustrate this for me a little bit. This is on the LSO drafts and interim committee staffing statistics graph. In 2025, we had 542 staff days. Could you monetize that for me? Old JAC guys need that. You can ballpark it.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I really can't. I don't have any idea what that number would be. You'll see real growth in staff days from 2002 through 2025. 2002 is the first year we've got those numbers. While the number of committee meeting days has certainly grown in that time too, our staff days have gone up because of a number of different factors. One, we have got such a much larger IT component to each committee meeting now than we used to. With remote participation at each meeting, we need more staff to be able to make sure that that works to the greatest extent possible. We also staff much differently than we used to. There's an old saying around here, you know, when I started, first year was 2006, they sent me to a committee meeting by myself with a tape recorder and said, good luck. And that's not what we do anymore. We use our committee meetings really a lot for training. Matt Petrie, the Research and Evaluation Administrator, has a new staff member starting. She'll start staffing along with him to see how he does it. So there's a lot of reasons for our staff days going up. And also I think committee work is more complicated now than it used to be too. But Mr. Chairman, I don't really have a number for those staff days. Now what we can tell you is generally for an interim committee meeting for legislators, it's about $8,500 per day for a 14-person committee. Now there's wild fluctuations depending on the makeup of the committee, where the committee members are from, and also where you meet. With probably Casper generally being the cheapest place to meet, followed by Cheyenne.
Senator Guru, please.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. So, in addition, when we have meetings outside of this building and outside of Thyra Thompson and Casper, where we have and invested in all the equipment that is sitting in front of us now, when we have to go out on the road and we carry all that equipment, it's the staff that has to bring all the microphones, the extra batteries, all that jazz, because a lot of the rooms we go into, some of them don't have it, some of them don't have the right equipment. Isn't that still true?
Mr. Chairman, it's either staff or it's our partners at Wyoming Public Television that provides that service to the state. of broadcasting the meetings. They bring their own microphone systems. We've helped defray some of those costs over the year, but I will be honest, it's minimal what they charge us. We bought them a new microphone system with legislative money, I don't know, 3 or 4 years ago. It was a second one, and really they needed it because of our increase in committee meetings that we wanted live streamed. And so they provide us that service, but staff, our staff, LSO staff also has to help with that IT or AV component of the meetings as well.
Senator Grimm. Thank you. So yeah, and that's where I wanted to go next was public television. You say they charge us a minimal amount. Have we settled with them for this year for a charge, a fee? Have we seen anything about that from them? I just wonder if since
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, we'll have to ask Heather Cameraman if, but what we do is we put a line item in the feed bill for our interim committee activities. It's part of the budget that Heather and I develop, and, you know, Wyoming Public Television lets us know what they're going to charge. And pretty much what it is their travel expenses for the meetings. So Heather can answer that if she's got it.
Senator?
Just one last question. If in Thyra Thompson and here, we don't incur those charges because we have our own internal system at both of those. Is there that contemplated in the Riverton office building as well?
Mr. Chairman, it is not currently, but it is something that, you know, I can explore as that building gets closer to completion. Really, the way the Casper office building came about was I realized that there was going to be some shelved space in there, and I thought, oh, well, this would be nice to have legislative space in that building. And so we pushed that through in a state CapCon bill, I don't know, 2018, 2019, something like that, to provide that legislative space. And we could certainly work with our partners at the executive branch to do the same thing in Riverton if Management Council and the legislature saw value to that.
Thank you.
We good, Senator? Senator Craig.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So just looking at the staffing statistics as well, I was curious, how many of those meetings, how many of the committees requested additional days through the years, maybe the last 5 years? Sort of what's the trend there? Were we having additional days requested or not? And what's that look like? Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Matt?
Mr. Chairman, I would say the number of additional days has remained fairly static during my time as director the last 8 years. It is roughly 5 to 8 additional day requests per year to either deal with emergent topics that weren't identified during this meeting, or to be able to finish up a topic that took the committee longer than they thought it would.
Senator Craig, follow? Good. Any other questions? Representative Harrelson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just one clarifier. You said Casper was the cheapest, followed by Cheyenne, or was that Cheyenne's the cheapest, followed by Casper?
Matt?
Mr. Chairman, Representative Harrelson, it really depends on the committee makeup, but I think Casper's probably the cheapest. You're right, less mileage.
Okay, any others? Representative Yen, please.
Mr. Speaker, it's not really a question for Matt, but more of a statement about the process, if I may.
Please proceed.
So, members, there's only 3 of us on Management Council that was on Management Council before, but I've stated this to previous Management Councils, is that the interim topic process that we have in place is kind of a little silly. And the last time I told it to Management Council said, okay, but we're gonna keep doing it this way anyways. Basically, my concern is that, you know, as Management Council, our duty is to manage the legislative budget and manage the legislative service office. I think that the kind of nitpicking over the topic letters creates a situation where not only does the public have to petition their committees during the session and their committee chairmen, but then they have to come to us and petition us as well for specific topics. I don't think that's super efficient. I think we have committee chairmen for a reason, and we should basically delegate that ability to them. But I do think that our duty should be to, again, manage our budgeting. So that means amount of time, and manage our office. I think the one situation where we kind of get in a pickle where we should take some responsibility is managing topics that multiple committees have said that they wanted to tackle, right? That's about efficiency and management of that time as well. So just wanted to get that out there for both the public and the other members of Management Council, that I think this is a place that we could make it more efficient.
Mr. Chairman.
Senator Demko.
Thank you. Dovetailing off of Representative Yin and being one of the few members who served on Management Council now for a period of years, I too am frustrated with this process and find it wildly inefficient, where we're going to spend about 12 hours today having chairmen read their interim topic letters. It's also really not a day for public comment or participation, even though the public does. The reason why is the day is not designed really for us to efficiently do that. So I know there's a number of community stakeholders here that want to talk about a number of issues that they've experienced in the state and dissatisfaction with those laws. But for purposes of Management Council and assigning topics for committees, that's what we're really here to do, not to evaluate certain facts that have happened in the state or whether or not there's a need for new laws. Really, it's to evaluate the chairman's requests for interim topics and make sure that the committees are working efficiently, as Representative Yin said. So I do think that there's some confusion statewide, both from our constituents and from the legislature as to the purpose of this meeting, as opposed to what we're actually here to do today, which is to review the chairman's interim topic letters. And as a former chairman, I too am frustrated with this process, recognizing that my need for autonomy as a chairman to set the work for the committee is really paramount. And when Management Council kind of tries to micromanage that, it really interferes with the ability of what the committees have decided to do for their interim. In light of the also increasing work that we've seen with this presentation of the last 15 to 17 years of this increasing trend, the percentages of our committee bills passing, it's my proposal and my motion to reduce the number of committee days from 6 to 4. Talking with our staff and understanding the savings that this can bring to the state, it's about $120,000 to $140,000 that we can save the taxpayers of Wyoming to reduce the amount of interim committee days from 6 to 4. As a result of that motion and that proposal, I just suggest that the chairman have full autonomy to determine their agendas accordingly and to determine those interim topics accordingly, with the recognition to ensure there's not a duplication of efforts as a result of the works of the committees. That's my motion, Mr. Chairman, and the rationale. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Nethercutt. There's a motion on the floor. Is there a second? Second. Is there a discussion? Representative Bear.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You know, I know I can only speak for appropriations, but in lieu of having a task force for the fire mitigation programs and how we fight fires in the state of Wyoming and our forestry department, we determined that we would work on that this summer. So not sure that 2 meetings would accomplish what we've done in that effort to replace the effort that would be completed by a task force. So I would probably be a no, just because of the caveat that we have just in appropriations. I know that's only one situation, but that's my situation.
Thank you, Representative Bear. Further discussion? Senator Salazar, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, I would be, I think I might be receptive to this motion. However, given the fact that we are going into a budget session, given the fact of a number of issues surrounding the makeup of that budget bill, I would like to see the Joint Appropriations Committee have the time that they need that is currently on the schedule. So maybe we can have a little discussion on that. Thank you.
Matt? Thank you, Senator.
Mr. Chairman, and maybe I can just provide some clarity to Senator Salazar's question. So the 4 to 6 interim committee meeting days, though those would impact the Joint Appropriations Committee's interim, they won't impact your budget hearings. You'll still have the full 2 weeks of budget hearings that you would have in addition to the 4 meeting days for your interim topics.
Mr. Chairman?
Senator.
Yeah, and I appreciate that clarification. I think I would like to see the Joint Appropriations Committee have those 3 meetings I think they're pretty vital to the starting of the markup. And so that would be my thought.
Okay. Representative Heiner, and then I'll go to Senator Groom. Matt, did you have a follow-up, Matt, to Claire? Let's do that first.
Yep, Mr. Chairman,
Matt, please.
and maybe just to clarify a little bit, 4 days doesn't necessarily just mean 2 meetings. It could mean 3 meetings, a 2-day meeting followed by a 1-day meeting and then another 1-day meeting. So you could split it up, those 4 days, into 3 meetings if that's what the committee wanted to do. And I think the number that Senator Nethercott provided is actually based on 3 meetings, 2-day, 1-day, and a 1-day meeting.
Representative Heiner.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I like the conversation and the direction that this is going. We have been growing our interim topics and growing our meeting days progressively over the last decade. And maybe we need to prioritize a little bit better and reduce those meetings and gain a better priority of what we're discussing as we do a deep dive. Now, I also like the idea of giving latitude and autonomy to our committee chairman to decide what they want to do within the boundaries we set with our budget. Let them decide their topics, let them decide how many days that will take, but stay within the budget. And if that means having a couple of Zoom meetings at the end to wrap things up, that's fine. But to have a 4-day instead of 6 days, and then maybe there's a one-off where they need extra days because of something extraordinary, I like that idea. I'm in support of this motion, and I think this is headed in the right direction that kind of forces us to prioritize what we're talking about during the summer and getting to the details that are going to be important for legislation in the coming session rather than going on a lot of tangents. So I appreciate this motion, and I'm in favor of it.
Thank you, Representative. Senator Groom.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I too am in favor of this. I sat on this committee before, and now I'm back on after a few years. But I too noticed the just exponential growth, and it's almost like about like a runaway train. And as far as I agree with the good representative. Let's let our chairman be chairman. Let's let them, and even on this multiple topic discussion, I'm sure, when I was co-chair of regulatory reduction, we got on the phone with chairmen from other committees that sent us bills, and we talked to them and we helped prioritize with them what bills they wanted to take up in their committees and which ones we took up. It works. I think committee chairmen can speak with each other and say, I think my committee is the best committee to handle this issue. They work it out amongst themselves. They've got their 4 days, and then they can move forward. But I think it really can get at the cost of this, that I worry a lot about staff time. And as a person who travels farther to come here, I would suggest, and I don't know if I'll bring this to motion, I'd suggest all the meetings be in Casper, Cheyenne, just so that way our staff can stay closer to home. Our meetings are broadcast more in a regular fashion. I love the notion about taking the capital around the state, but frankly, there's a lot of cost involved. We don't advertise the fact that we're coming, so no one knows, except maybe a rogue mayor or county commissioner, or if it's an agenda item for the community. But basically, they only hear about it after we left. there's an article in the paper, oh, this committee was here last week. And so I just wonder if we're really effectively getting that out. If we want to do that, then we should advertise ourselves that we're coming out, but we don't do that. So I'd like to see us try to hang, even if we still travel around the state, let's pare this down a bit and let's see where it goes from there. I'm in support of that. There are some other examples. I know appropriations has a question and we can tackle that. TRW, as a former member of TRW, they travel to go to a lot of going out to look at parks and look at things on the ground. They do that as part of their business. If they want an exception for that, for those tours, that's great. Water does that a lot as well. Maybe those are things that maybe deserve a little other look for, peculiar things that they're doing each time, that they're just particular things they're doing. But those we can take on a case-by-case basis. And even if a committee wants another day afterwards, they can come and ask. And then we can, that's what management council should manage, is manage that flow. And I think that would make these meetings less than, 12-hour marathons that really don't, I think, besides upsetting chairmen that when we take away their subject matter, I don't know if it produces any good results. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thanks, Senator. Representative Bear.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think it would be helpful for all of the chairmen to understand financially. I like the idea of doing some meetings virtually in an effort to save money and then accomplishing more work via that method. I think it'd be helpful for everybody here, if we're going to pare things back today, to hear what the kind of financial difference would be between in-person. We've heard $8,500 per day roughly. What would it be if we did it virtually? So I don't know if Director Obrecht could give us a figure, but that would be helpful for our budgeting purposes.
Mr. Obrecht.
Mr. Chairman, so what you save on a virtual meeting is only the mileage. And now many members waive their per diem as well for a virtual meeting, but they don't have to. Under statute, they're entitled to that per diem. So if they don't waive the per diem, what you're saving is mileage, and that varies widely by committee, what the mileage might be and where you're at. But I would say, and Heather can help me out here, she's got a better number than me, a very rough estimate is $500 to $1,500 for mileage for a one-day meeting, if you're saving it by appearing remotely.
Representative Bear, follow up? Okay. Any other discussion? President.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Boy, this is tough. I see where you're coming from, Senator Nethercott, but I also want to empower, if we're going to empower the chairman, if they have the option to use 6 days, they can. They don't have to take all 6 days. If they can get their work done in 3 days, great. By micromanaging them and limiting them to 4 is where I'm struggling, because my goal, especially going into this budget session, is to kind of ratchet down the number of bill drafts so we can do better work on fewer bills. I think limiting discussion during the interim on these priorities that people think are important to them and their constituents, all you're doing is pushing those priorities into individual bills that aren't vetted as well. And then we're building the plane as we're flying it during the budget session in a short amount of time. So I don't know how that will affect bill quality going forward. If we shorten it down to 4, people are only getting priority number 1, 2, and 3 basically done. Priorities 4, 5, and 6 end up as individual bills, and they haven't gone through the process. So your thoughts on that, maybe?
Thank you, Senator. Senator Nethercott, please.
Mr. Chairman, currently right now, I think the committee bill passage rate is about 53%, which means 47% of the committee work is dead on arrival for a variety of reasons, right? I mean, some of that's good, some of that's bad. In my opinion, the committee work has gone down in recent years, I think for a variety of reasons as well. Some of that has to do with the committees taking on too much and just overall challenges associated with the interim committee process. So I don't know, I think the reduction of total number of bill drafts, either from individual legislators or committees, is the responsible direction that we need to take, and the directive given to our committees. I want to make sure that everyone understands that if a committee there are some committees with a higher load. Corporations is one of those committees that typically has a pretty heavy lift each year, dealing with utility regulation to all the elections issues. And there are other committees similarly situated. However, I do think it's important that we stress the prioritization of topics so that we have a higher percentage of passage rate, because those bills really have been worked. So it's quality over quantity, and we're prioritizing that for the people of Wyoming, and then saving money. But there's still the saving grace of, if a committee does need additional time or days, they can always ask Management Council, receive that additional time, whether that's on Zoom or a live meeting, is certainly discretionary based on the needs of that committee. But it's always an option available. But I think in order to create some meaningful sidebars to the people's resources, right, and efficiency of a legislator's time, staff members' time, and quality work for the people of Wyoming, this is the best tool to achieve that result.
Thanks, Senator. Senator Grew?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I understand the president's struggle, and I too, I don't take this lightly. But I guess what I would say to you is, and I know we've been in about the same amount of time, I know you've learned the same lesson I've learned. Of the 250, 275 bills, whatever, that crossed my desk last year, that crossed yours, every one of those bills was very important to somebody. And virtually, I'd say every bill that gets drafted is important to somebody. My question is the growth of the number of those bills and the quality of each one. And I think the quality has gone down. And so I'm trying to, I think this could empower our chairs to focus in and focus their committees in on what truly is, and you brought it up, whether it was brought up about corporations and number of election bills, electric utility bills. Well, I think that's a perfect example of the chairman, and we've got great chairmen on those committees. We're very fortunate. And so with a lot of experience, so they can take a look at those election integrity bills, they can take a look at the rate utility bills, get with the other chairman and say, this is how we should cut this down and make bills that are powerful bills, that are bills that address the needs, address the concerns, and aren't just all over the place. Because as it gets watered down into that minutia, then all of a sudden they're the ones that drop off the board, and they drop off the board faster. I joke, we had more election integrity bills last year on the floor than we had questions about election integrity since statehood. So I wonder sometimes if we're getting the bang for the buck that we need, with all due respect. I'm sure all those bills are great bills. I didn't vote for a lot of them, but I'd like to see if this couldn't hone that down and get better bills that we could all support and get. I wonder if that wouldn't raise the level of the quality of those bills, make them more passable, make them more advantageous to the body, and get our work done better. So that's where I came out on the struggle. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator. Representative Harrelson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So as I look at this, one of the things for me coming in 5 years ago, committee time, one of the things that I did enjoy about committee time is there's a lot of education that comes with it. There's a lot, I mean, especially as we have a very large freshman class. I look over at a good Chairman Case. I learned a lot about the energy sector in those meetings. And I think that there's a point we need to be careful. I agree that we're putting too many bills out. But I think if we were to put more of a focus on the interim committee being a time for educating the legislative body, I think that's really important, because as a whole, we don't have time. We're pushing bills hard while we're in sessions. We're pushing bills hard whenever we're downstairs in those rooms. And the interim is where you can sit there and go, okay, well, I guess I never even realized that was the scope and sequence of this situation. And so I think maybe if we're already talking about putting that back into the chairman's hands, what if there was a part of this that simply was, hey, how many days do you need? How many days do you need to accomplish what you're doing here? And what's your goal for that? Man, we need 4 days. 4 days is fine. Honestly, we don't even need 3 meetings. We need 2 meetings. we can save some money for the state. We can deal with the bills we have in two-day meetings. We can do it in 4. Or you know what? We've got, I look at Corp or Judiciary or Probe, some of these heavier lift meetings or committees. Man, we need 6. And I think maybe we just right out of the gate offer that opportunity for them to say, hey, our goal is to thin our days, but maybe we can't thin our days just because of our workload or the educational aspect of it. So I would say I think maybe a hybrid of this is the answer, personally just listening, where our goal should be to limit our days, limit the amount of money we're spending, and limit the 200 and whatever bills that are coming out of our interim committees. But I think at the same time, maybe we sit there and say, hey, let's view that as our function, but at the same time not eliminate what the good work we do while we're in interim committees.
Senator.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to clarify then what the motion is. The motion is, number 1, that we reduce from 6 to 4 days for interim days for the committees. Number 2, that we allow the chairman of those committees to determine the topics rather than coming through this body. And number 3, that if there are committees that have a heavier load, they can always come back to this body to ask for additional days if needed. Is that my understanding of what the motion is, please?
I believe, Senator, you can clarify that, but I believe that is the motion.
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. For the Representative Bear, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to gently push back on the good senator from Teton County's point of view, as well as the majority floor leader. When it comes to quality, that is in the eye of the beholder. I think our staff, they keep getting better and better. So their quality before is as good as their quality is today. Our quality is part of it, but it goes through that staff before it becomes a bill. And I would say that we know that it was around 67% passage of committee bills in the past, but we had a major ideological shift in the body in this last turnover. And so we saw some considerable changes, and that affects bills that came out of a previous legislature as committee bills. And so I don't think that the 67% drop to 53% is something that, number 1, is we're not going to see that reverse again. This committee and our current chairman will be selecting topics that are more ideologically aligned with the body now. So I think that their chances of passage are going to go up. I think we're going to do good work today, and that will assist with that. But to think that we're on a trend because this one time we went from 67 down to 53, I think that's going the wrong. It's an idea that is without support. And so I would say that quality is in the eye of the beholder. We need to make sure that the bills that come out of these committees and the work that we do is aligned ideologically with the body. If you're worried about the percentage of passage, that's what's going to get it up. And so with that, I would suggest that we're going to see an increase from that 53% in this next year.
Representative Yim.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. So I think ultimately I would support passage of the motion, and I think that, on the agenda, we still have every committee committee chair going to come talk in front of us. So if any of them feel like 4 is not enough for them, then they have the opportunity to petition us for more days, right? They can come say, if this motion passes, they can literally say today, our workload is so large, I'm asking for extra days. Could you have a motion to grant us extra days? So we can take it on a case-by-case basis if we so choose, even after passage of this motion.
Thank you, Representative. Any others? Question? Before the question, I would like to speak on this as well, just to give my opinion of where we're at. I support this. I think this is a great idea. And I think the reason that I support this is because I believe the attitude of this particular management council is to allow our chairman more latitude and less not oversight necessarily, but more trust in their ability to be able to make decisions. When I picked my chairman, I did it with the intent of knowing that they are competent, qualified, very, very capable people doing the job that the people need them to do, and we trust their judgment to be able to do that. I like the idea that if the chairman comes up here even today, if this motion passes, that they can say, hey, folks, this is not going to be able to be quite enough time for us, and we're going to need to be able to do that. And we can offer that opportunity, and they can take advantage of that. I do like the idea, and I believe it's necessary, Representative Yin, to trust our chairman and to allow them to do their job. And I do think that we're going to get a higher quality of work when they are able to have more of a say in what their committee deals with, and they get more follow through and support from their individual committees as they work on topics that are very important to them. So we've got good chairmen, and we just need to let them do their jobs. And so I think they can do that, and if they need the time, they can have it. If not, then we can be efficient. We can save some dollars here for the people of the state of Wyoming, which is always a good idea, but we can develop and we can produce quality work. So I will be in support of this motion with that in mind. So any other discussion? Question has been called. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, no. Motion has been adopted. Next item, Matt.
Mr. Chairman, just to piggyback on that motion, I think one area that I owe it to Management Council to help is check in with my staff. What I'm afraid of is that committees will try to fit the same amount of work in to 4 days that they had for 6 previously. And one way to do that is through creation of subcommittees and working groups, which has the same impact on staff and actually more so. So if I start hearing from my staff that chairmen are doing that, I'll report that to Management Council, and that can be addressed on an individual basis. But while I think that subcommittees and working groups have a place in interim committee work, they certainly do. They have been seriously overused for the last few years, where committees won't make a decision on a topic and instead create a subcommittee to delay that. And then the subcommittee comes back with a solution that the majority of the committee doesn't like. And so I think chairmen just have to really be cautious about using that tool. And while it seems like this great educational opportunity, really what you get a lot of the time is a lack of consensus on the full committee if you have a subset of the committee looking at an issue. So just wanted to interject that, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you, Matt. Good advice to our chairman. Hope all of you heard that, and we will take advantage of that. So any other discussion? Any other issues? Okay, well, seeing none, we will be moving on to our first committee, Joint Agriculture, State and Public Lands and Water Resources.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Senator.
Just for point of kind of decorum and how to manage then today's agenda in light of that motion and giving autonomy to the chairman, I guess probably more direction to the chairman and then to the public. Because again, I know a lot of the public has come. I know the press wants to provide public comment on the public records item for corporations. I know there's members from, I think, counties up north concerning a particular criminal case that recently occurred, and they want to talk about that experience and that story. And so in light of us giving, pursuant to that last motion, kind of autonomy to the chairman, is it this committee's wish now to have them all read their interim topic letters to us? Or if we should say, how do you feel about that motion? You know, do you want to talk about your agenda? Have you identified those areas that maybe you'd like to be more efficient on, to eliminate some topics, just so that we don't do a 12-hour day of reading interim topic letters?
Senator Salazar, please.
Yeah, to piggyback on that, I would agree with that. If we have now given our chairman the ability to pick the topics, if we've said that we trust them and that they should go and do what we have entrusted them to do, then I question whether spending the next 4 or 5 hours is prudent of our time, so.
Any other discussion? Matt?
Mr. Chairman, and here's what I will do. I will have Heather Cameraman, our fiscal officer, work up new budgets for each committee based on their proposed meeting locations, but based on a first 2-day meeting and then 2 one-day meetings to follow that. And she'll come up with a new budgetary number for each committee to provide that. Then our staff will work with chairman Assigned committee staff will work with chairman to develop agendas and a work plan for the interim to get through whatever topics the two chairmen want to get through, or whatever additional topics management council proposes today. So we can have a further report to council later on this month on what that looks like for each committee as well.
Thank you, Mr. Obrick. Any other discussion? Senator Craigle, you are dying to say something.
I'm trying not to, Mr. Chairman.
Just giving you the option, sir.
I guess to follow up on Senator Nethercott's question or attempted direction, I don't know which it was, but I mean, I do think that if we're going to actually shorten our time today, we need to give our chairman some direction. And maybe that's as simple as them coming up, sitting down, telling us, hey, just pointing out a few of the highlights from their letters to us having the opportunity to ask a couple questions and move on to the next chairman. I think that would probably get us out of here and move the process along a lot quicker.
Thank you, Senator. And agreed. I do believe it's important that each one of our chairmen come up and make their presentation of what their thoughts and plans are. And also to the point of saying that this is maybe going to need a little bit more time based on the testimony of folks that are here today that have traveled some great distances to be able to be here and to address the committee. I certainly do not want to undermine or to say that, well, sorry, hope you enjoyed your trip, but we're certainly not going to listen to what you have to come and say. As chair, I will say I will not do that. I do want to hear you make your presentations here, and that will also have an opportunity, but to encourage you that based on this last decision, your chairman and chairwomen are going to be the ones that are going to be the folks you need to talk to directly, because they are going to be able to have far more sway and determination in how those topics are aligned. Senator Nethercott.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. Yeah, this has kind of been a trend in the last couple of years regarding this meeting for determining interim topics, of inviting members of the public who've experienced something adverse potentially in the state or something of importance to come and testify to the Management Council. And I think the purpose of that is valid, and we always love hearing from constituents and value that testimony and the effort it takes to come here and the courage it also takes to testify. But Management Council is an administrative body intended to understand the efficient use of the legislature's resources for the topics that the committees and the legislature focuses on. So it's not a day, all of the topics that are presented before us and identified in those letters have had a meeting concerning the relevancy of those topics where the stakeholders provided the why it should be presented to Management Council as identified topic. If we had all of those people come back again today to tell us how important those topics were, we would need to turn this into a week-long meeting as well. So again, I think for legislators and members of the public to understand the role, I think, of public comment on interim topic day for Management Council, it'd be helpful to have that perspective where we're just trying to manage efficiency of resources from an administrative perspective, as opposed to making laws today or hearing merits of a particular issue. And I think that helps manage constituent understanding of what those outcomes can be, and to make sure they feel heard and get the results that they want from the legislature, where in this committee that may not occur as a result of what our purpose and function is. So I appreciate hearing from the chairman. I'm glad he's committed to hearing from those folks that have traveled here today. But just perhaps as a word of wisdom to other legislators and or constituents who want to come share their stories at this particular meeting, may not be the committee where you get the results you're seeking. So thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator. Any further discussion? Otherwise, Representative Chairman Winter.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is the first time I've done this, so bear with me if you would. I appreciate the confidence you've placed in the chairman. Senator Nethercott was talking about what were you talking about? But anyway, we will do whatever you folks want us to do, but I would like to express my concern, and I didn't hear this during your discussion about that proposal, but what are your thoughts relative to some of the tours that we make during these interim meetings? I think they're pretty important, at least in agriculture and TRW. We're able to see what goes on in the state, and we can reflect that in our in the legislation that we might have, or on the floor itself. I think it just improves the information that we have to work with. So I'd like to get some feedback on that whenever you thought it was appropriate.
Mr. Chairman?
Senator Nethercutt?
So Senator, I think you're referring, Mr. Chairman, to Senator Garu's comments about restricting the location of the meetings. That was not part of the motion. And so the limitation of where to have your meetings is not restricted in any way at this time. And so if you choose to have a meeting somewhere where you would want to participate in a tour or get eyes on the ground of a particular issue, there's no limitation on the ability to do so.
Okay, well, thank you.
Thank you, Senator.
So do you want me to start with these topics and explain what we have here? Is that how you want to operate?
Well, quite frankly, I mean, unless you have something specific, I guess what I'm going to be looking for, and I'm sure the body's looking for, is if you do not believe that you have enough and adequate time to be able to do those in those 4 times, and Matt's putting together basically the cost for a 2-day meeting and 2 one-day meetings, if that would fit your committee. Do you have any specific things that you know of that you can see that would be problematic, or feel like as if you wouldn't be able to accomplish a closer look at this and making sure that you've refined down to the very important topics? And if you don't believe that you can make that work, now would be a great time to say, like I'm sure maybe corporations is going to come up here and says, you're not going to give us enough time no matter how much time you give us. And so if you believe that you're in good shape and maybe want to come back later after consultation with your co-chairman, which I see he is online, we'll trust you to organize your committees the way you see fit and stay within your budget. And if you can't or have to go outside of that, let us know. It's basically what I believe we just got out of that discussion. Correct me if I'm wrong, Chief Body. So.
Okay. I did want to make you aware of one situation we have here. When Senator French and I worked out this, our schedule or our topics that we were wanting to discuss, there was a topic of veterinary technicians. And on this list we have, it does not show up, and I don't know why. But I've talked to some veterinarians, and they think it's a good program to get these vet techs licensed, if you will, and where it helps their clientele know that they have qualified people working for them. So I don't know if that's still in the mix or not.
Mr. Chairman?
Senator Nethercutt.
Good Chairman, good news for you today, even though your vet tech issue is not on your proposed interim topics, because we made the motion to give the chairman pretty solid autonomy or independence in determining how you want to prioritize your 4 days. I think it's well within your ability to add that to your time if you so choose. That's my view, Mr. Chairman.
Could not have said that better myself. President Biden.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Chairman, I noticed priority number 5 deals with game and fish landowner hunting licenses. And looking ahead at TRW's list, they're also, I think their priority number 2 or 3 is game and fish and looking at licenses. Yeah, priority 3 for TRW. And they're looking at 4 to 5 hours on that. You know, just looking at trying to make things more efficient, would that be something you'd be willing to let TRW tackle, or is it something you and Co-Chairman French are passionate about taking a look at as well? I'm just trying to avoid duplication of efforts here.
Chairman Winter.
Mr. Chairman, Senator Beitman, we discussed this before somewhat, and I really believe that what they're trying to get at here is has to do with agriculture probably as much as anything. So I'm just not sure that that would be the right way to go. We'll do whatever you think, but I know there was a concern that maybe this was, we could get carried away with this whole thing. I don't know, Senator French, he might have a different.
He does, he has to
take
stand
on
up. Senator French, please.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, proceed, Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Council. As Representative Winter says, you know, it needs to, that topic needs to be an ag, because it's ag people that it's all about. These landowner tags was not about anything other than landowner tags and how that would go. So I think the ag committee is the appropriate committee. I think it should be pulled from TRW personally. Because like myself, I get landowner tags. Well, a lot of us out there in the ag community do, so we can talk to the subject. And besides that, I have a question. Did you, I'm sorry, I stepped away for just a second, but did you vote on Senator Nethercott's motion on going from 6 days to 4 days and allowing the chairman to have the discretion they want? My other question is, if we have the ability, if the management council so deems that the chairman can determine the topics, if you would agree to the 5 topics, then we can, when we meet, or John and or I can discuss it before our first meeting in Powell. Well, we don't have time in 4 days to discuss the 5 topics. Let's trim them down to 3, and if we agree on the 3 or whatever, but we have that ability. Thank you.
Yes, Senator, that motion was passed and considered, and it did pass. And so you guys will have the autonomy to be able to make those decisions. So we're leaving that in your realm to handle that. We're trust your judgment, sir. So Senator Grew, you had a question or?
Just, if I could, Mr. Chairman, yeah, just
Please.
a comment, and Chairman Winter and Chairman French, you're talking exactly what we were talking about. For you and for your meetings, you know, the 2 and then 2 one-day meetings with your tours might be able to, that might be the ticket for you to get the tours in that you want, or you might need some extra time, which is something you could come back and talk to us about, or talk to us about even today. As far as where that bill should land, TRW or in your committee, is something that would be, it sounds like a spirited conversation between the 4 chairmen to come to a consensus and move forward. Instead of us deciding for you, have you all get together and decide how best to utilize your time with your other goals, as I look up at TRW, and you guys decide that very thing and then come up with the best answer possible to get the best bill possible for it, is exactly, instead of us telling you what that answer is exactly what I think was the intent of the motion.
Thank you, Senator. I believe that is exactly what we were intending to do, and hopefully that will see through to fruition.
Mr. Chairman?
Senator Nethercott.
I think just from a logistics housekeeping perspective, and to the chairmen who are here and listening, and for the public, I'm sure this conversation is creating some confusion about, well, then what work will the committees be doing? And how will we be notified that they're taking up a topic? I think that's a realistic concern. Let me balance that with the reality on the ground that we've experienced in the last number of years, since I've been in the legislature. Committees are assigned their interim topics. They are statutorily prohibited from doing topics outside those management council assigned interim topics. We have seen a growing trend of committees doing just that and violating statute. There's been no consequence or reaction to that, a concern of mine. So the willful disregard of the statute is a concern. But committees have historically been adding topics without notice to the public in a meaningful way. So from a public transparency concern, or how do we know what the committees are doing, that challenge is currently before you as a result of chairmen kind of just taking up topics at their leisure and then putting forward committee bills that are in violation of statute. So for purposes of this meeting and to the chairman, what I would ask you to do is to identify those topics currently identified on your interim topics list that you know you will work in the 4 days. You have the discretion to add on vet text or whatever topic you want, recognizing that you have the realistic limitation of time associated with how many topics you choose to take up. I'd also ask you to signal to the public those topics that you think you probably will not have time for. And that is a realistic application of how our committees currently function. So looking at just the broad levels of topics that you provided on those lists, if you could, this should already be determined between the co-chairmen, what topics you have identified as being critical for your work, those being less critical, and perhaps informing the public of any additional topics you consider, just for the point of public transparency. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator. Any other discussion? Representative Heiner.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Chairman French and Chairman Winter, as I look over these 6 topics, I think you have a valid concern and reason to keep the landowner hunting licenses in your committee, as expressed by Chairman French. I think that's a good reason to keep it in your committee. You have 6 topics. That's going to be pretty difficult to get through all 6 in 4 days. But number 6 is cloud seeding. And as we were discussing topics in Minerals Committee, geoengineering came up and it landed number 4 in our priorities. It was a very highly talked about topic, and from the various constituents, we've heard a lot about geoengineering. We did not bring it up in our list of topics because we saw that you had cloud seeding in your topics, and we were hoping that you would bring up geoengineering as you delve into cloud seeding. So with that, we didn't bring it into our topics in minerals, but I would hope that if you were able to get to number 6 topic of cloud seeding, that you do expand that a little bit and get into some testimony about geoengineering, because that is obviously a very high top priority. I don't know very much about it, but I think it would be something that we could delve into if you do have the time. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Any other discussion? Chairman Winter, Chairman French? Any other questions, concerns, comments? Seeing none.
Mr. Chairman, sorry, Senator French has his hand up again.
Oh, Senator French, I'm sorry. I've got to get better about looking over that way. Please proceed, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, we whittled our topics down to the 6, knowing that we didn't have time to do everything that was proposed. I think since the council's gonna give us the ability to manage those further, that we can relook at those 6 and say, man, these 3 are the most crucial, and in 4 days' time, it's gonna be a struggle to properly address those 3 or those 4. So I think Representative Winter and I will relook at those and make a determination, because 4 days, we have different like state lands and investment, different ones, the ag department to come talk to us, give us updates, so Representative Winter and I will whittle those down if necessary, because 6 in 4 days is going to be a difficult thing to pull off. So thank you, the council, for giving us the ability and other chairmen to manage our time and try to do the very best we can for the public. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Representative Bear.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just was thinking about the fact that the public has had a considerable amount of time to look at the subjects coming into today, and would have had a considerable amount of time from the choices made today to those first meetings. So now that we're giving the chairman the autonomy to change the subjects, I'm curious if the body would be amenable to giving a time limit, a time certain, maybe 30 days beforehand, that the chairman would determine what the subject matters would be so that the public has an idea with some advance notice of what issues were being removed and which ones remained.
Thank you, Representative. Discussion? Any thoughts? Representative Yen, please.
Mr. Chairman, some of the committees have their first meeting May 7th, which is less than 30 days away. So we probably need to be like 2 weeks. But I know we have, and maybe Matt can enlighten us what the agenda deadline is for committees to post their agenda.
Thank you, Representative. Matt, please.
Mr. Chairman, the agenda deadline is 2 weeks before a meeting. What I would say is if committees are going to meet before that 30-day deadline, that they need to get management council their finalized topics so we can make sure that there's not overlap between the committees still, and that council, we provide the notice to the public, and that council can also, if there are overlap between topics, council can decide where to assign those topics if the chairman aren't able to hash that out.
Thank you, Matt. Representative Bear, does that answer your questions? Any others? Good? Well, unless you've got something other to want to discuss, thank you, Chairman Winter, and thank you, Chairman French. Well, Chairman French still has his hand up. Do you have a question, Chairman French? No, we're good. Okay.
No, we're good.
Yep. Is there any other discussion? Seeing none. Next, corporations. Burdens. Oh, management audit, which also is my guy. So, I'm sorry, Senator. Yeah, I see when I see Chairman Knapp get up, I think of corporations after all the late hours we spent. And so, all right. Next for our consideration is management audit. But according now, wait a minute here. Yours is mixed up? No, here it is. Okay, we're good. Chairman Knapp and Senator Larson. So. But you will be quickly behind Senator Case, and so. Chairman Knapp, please proceed.
Mr. Chairman, Council, I do believe that, number one, I support that motion, and having less committee bills coming out, I think is a good thing. It does lead to more quality bills coming out. So management audit should have no problem with this new number of days. Moving on to corporations, we would request the 10 other days that the committees aren't using, as well as a slumber party, working slumber party. So I think we'll have to pare down what we will hear, and many of the topics were general. So we'll probably have to pare down, for instance, election bills and things like that. But
Chairman Knapp?
Yes.
Before we do, and I was just reminded by my majority floor leader, we probably should have some discussion from the committee in regards to
for management
going on for management audit before we move on, because we went through that like Sherman's March to the Sea. So we'll, if there any discussion from any of the members in regards to the management audit. Okay. Thank you. Please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Good to be here. Members of the Management Council. The chairman and I have not visited about the new proposal. We came up with a list of interim topics based on a 6-day schedule and based on the priorities that were submitted to the committee, and the committee, we used a ranking system from the committee members to establish the priorities and bring them forward. In the process, we generalized our work. For example, the topic of elections had many specific smaller components, paper ballots, election machines, and we had 35 pages of suggested topics. So we narrowed those down to the ones that you see. Like I mentioned, we used a ranking system. We plan, because our committee is largely new, to undertake some education processes, one of which is in the election area. And then again, electricity is a constant big lift in an education process. But we tried to be efficient in those two two major lift pieces, which were ranked 1 and 2 by our committee members in their ranking system. For the elections, we would like to have more of a general beginning and we've already talked to the county clerks, and they will propose at our first meeting in Lander, they're going to bring in election equipment, show how the ballot procedures, how ballots are handled, the lock boxes and the chain of custody. We're going to go through all of that before we actually start digging into bills. So I'm hoping you'll keep open about 6 days. I actually think it's 6 days well spent. The committee is responsible. Last year, we had 16 bills. I believe that 9 were in the Senate, and of those, 7 passed. I'm off the top of my head here, but I believe that 7 passed is pretty good. In the House, there was 6 bills, and I believe 1 passed. Doesn't mean anything. I think, off the top of my head, I thought the bills were equally good bills. I didn't think we sent the bad bills to the House. So I think we just need a little bit more education and kind of big picture. Electricity, we're taking a different tack. We have the Wyoming Energy Authority has volunteered to kind of shepherd that, and we'd be more like riding along, I guess. So they want to have stakeholder meetings. We'd be certainly invited. They'll report back to the committee. And then the other topics on the list, we didn't mess with any of these. These came out of the priorities of the committees. There is one thing. I did not vote in the ranking system, and I used my vote at the very end. And that was with regard to the public records topic, because public records under the ranking that the committee submitted was 1 step lower, and the uniform elected officials associations was 1 step above. They're very close rankings. It was actually something kind of close to ranked choice that we used with all these committee members. It worked out well. But I weighed in and put all my vote on the public records, which raised it up a notch, because I do have concerns about that law. And Senator Nethercott worked very hard to develop that law previously on the Corporations Committee. And I just think it's a good time for a look at it, mostly with regards to the fees. There are some topics on our list that I think could be disposed of relatively easily. I'm just going to put out one, for example, the topic of county associations. Our clerks have an association, the county commissioners have an association. Some people feel that this is inappropriate, and for taxpayer money to go for those associations to come down and lobby the legislature, that is the crux of the issue right there. We'd kind of like to look at that and suppose that if we didn't have those associations, how would we interact with those constituencies that we have as legislators? Would we have to have all the commissioners be individually represented, the clerks be individually represented? We have to think about that. I'm suspecting that when we look at the alternative, there may be some clearer answers. So I don't think that's going to be a big lift. But honestly, I think the 6 days, we do have the first meeting in Lander. It's kind of a tradition. It's centrally located. It's one of the cheaper places to have a meeting before we built Casper, and then follow up with meetings in Casper and Cheyenne. But I'm very happy to work under the new system and work closer with the chairman to pare these down and to try to be efficient. But I believe we will be asking for 2 more days. I'm just going to tell you right out, because we do a lot of work. And honestly, I'm extremely proud of the work the committee's done. The Corporations Committee in the Senate looked at 45 bills in our last session. Most of the election bills made it there. I think, I'm looking at all you, and many of you had bills in front of the committee. I hope you felt that the committee treated you fairly and that we did good work, but we worked very hard. And we're proud of that, and we're ready to go to bat again, sir.
Mr. Chairman?
Senator Nethercott.
Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Case. And now.
The Corporations Committee does do excellent work. Curious about your intent to provide kind of election law training as a result of all the new members on the Corporations Committee. And you're going to go through kind of what the voting machine looks like, the lock boxes, the whole process associated with election, the logistical process with ballots. Do you intend for that to be just something for the committee to experience, like in your local clerk's office, or will that be live streamed? So the whole public can see what that process looks like.
Senator Case?
Mr. Chairman, I spoke to the Fremont County Clerk this morning, who will head up this effort from the clerk's side. We intend to do it in the context of a regular meeting, regular time. Public television will be there, and those comments will be available. Of course, it'll be recorded. There may be another tour of where they store the election machines. That's a possibility, and I'm not sure whether the public can be brought into that realm. But I guarantee you that the gist of it will be in the context of a public meeting. And I think it'll be very useful for people, you know. And I'm going to make a pitch in a different direction. And this is one of the advantages of interim work, that we have this opportunity to educate ourselves, take a little bit more time, and educate the public and involve them in interim meetings. I'm a big believer in interim meetings around the state. I think even if legislation doesn't come out, goodwill and understanding comes out. So that's definitely my bias where I go to. So.
Senator.
Yeah, follow up. Thank you, Senator Case. And so on this topic alone of elections and recognizing your interim topic letter says much of the effort will be educational under this topic. How much time do you estimate will be needed? I mean, it sounds like this could easily be one day, or at least a half a day for the clerk's training or the informational piece. Do you agree with that? Or how much time do you think just on this one topic of election-related education?
Senator Case?
Mr. Speaker and Madam Majority Floor Leader, we have a thought about it in terms of agenda item of a quarter of a day for the clerks to demonstrate the equipment and do that. You mentioned, Madam Majority Floor Leader, reviewing election laws. That wasn't really part. I was reviewing election practices. I'm not really trying to teach election law 101, and indeed, if that were part of this, that would be more. But we're not looking at a half day. We're looking at less than a half day. For just education, though, and then it has to come to a head because we have to have the committee help us decide what bills to proceed with after that. And there were a plethora of bills. And so at that point, after we have an understanding of the current practices, then we will decide how those current practices could potentially be modified going forward. It's a big lift, but
Mr.
I
Chairman.
won't say it's not.
Thanks, Senator.
Mr. Chairman, Senator, we have had election machines in before in corporations, and it took maybe an hour, hour and a half to run through what they wanted to show. So I don't anticipate it would take too much time. I agree with the chairman that corporations typically has a large lift, but we will try to pare this down, and some of these can be handled pretty expeditiously. So if we do need extra days, we'll be sure to request that.
Thank you, Chairman. Any other discussion? Senator Craigo.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So just a quick question for both the chairman, and I don't know, I mean, in the news, we keep hearing a lot about corporate fraud, LLCs, being filed in the state. And I was wondering, was that one of the topics that anyone brought up during the interim selection process, or one that either of you thought about addressing during the interim? I know we just cut your days down to 4, so I'm not asking you to take it up, but just curious if that was something that was discussed.
Mr. Chairman.
Whoever would want to take it.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Speaker, thank you. It's definitely a concern of mine. In our last interim, we actually connected with the Fremont County assessor, who had led an effort to try to verify addresses with new filings with the Secretary of State's office and uncovered an extensive network of falsifications, which the Secretary of State's office has been very diligent about now revoking those entities' privileges. But I think this is fairly widespread. Overlaying whether we should do it as a committee or not was the fact that there is a pending federal law that's been in and out of, and it requires it's called the beneficial ownership law. That's got those words in the title, and it would require disclosure of the beneficial owners of corporate entities across the country, all states. And that's been overlaying kind of what we do. That would probably go a long ways towards curbing falsification and fraud in filings in Wyoming and around the country. So that was hanging out there. And in fact, until like 7 days ago, that was in effect, and people were filing that, and I believe the deadline was last week. But now it's been stayed again, is my understanding. So I don't know where that's going to go. Honestly, I am concerned about that, and we should probably, with the put on hold of the federal law, it would be prudent for the committee to at least get a report from various entities and keep that topic open. There's no easy fix to that topic, but we should keep our pulse on it. And, in the end, Wyoming it's very easy to form corporate entities in Wyoming. Maybe we've made it too easy. We do enjoy the revenue, but in a great perspective, is that revenue really worth it for what may be happening? And we know that fraud is existing. We don't know the complete extent of it. Secondhand, through Tara Berg, the assessor, I learned she has talked to the FBI. And at least anecdotally reported through her, the FBI is concerned that there's a lot of things happening in Wyoming. So I hope we can keep on that. It's not on our list, partly because the federal law looked like that might have solved it. Maybe it should be on our list.
Thank you, Senator. To follow up? Senator Biden.
Mr. Chairman, I just wanted to add one thing if I could.
Please.
I think that has been a focus of the Secretary of State. We did have some legislation come through concerning that on the House side, which passed through the committee in the House and on the floor. So hopefully we can see that again and address that issue.
Senator Biden.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I see in the letter, the committee is requesting us to approve to re-up their membership to the NCOIL, National Council of Insurance Legislators. Do we need to vote on that, or is that just a given that it's going to be re-upped?
Ma'am?
Yep, Mr. Chairman, yeah,
It's
you need
new.
to vote on that, yeah.
And if I might add,
Senator Case.
Mr. Speaker, Mr. President, it's a new request. We have not previously been members of NCOIL. We are members of the National Association of Insurance Commissioners. We're satellite members. NCOIL is the National Conference of Insurance Legislators, and their membership requirement is $20,000 per year. We didn't have a feed bill this year, so there was no way to advance this. So I put it on the interim topics list for a half membership, and it pays for the travel for members to go. The insurance industry is a huge sleeper about that. For example, that whole wildfire issue, that was insurance driven. The cost of casualty insurance is going through the roof as, building costs and storm patterns, and just, there is so much, not to mention healthcare crises, but that is probably more for the health committee. But NCOIL does focus on health, and we could share with them membership in terms of getting a couple members to go to build education, to build capability for later. And so I hope you will grant that. Thank you. It's 2 days of Zoom savings.
Thank you, Senator Case. Any further discussion? Senator Grew.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a comment for the chairman. I did discuss earlier about maybe consolidating our meeting locations. for expense purposes, but through discussions with you, Mr. Chairman, more than anyone else, I decided until we have a outpost on the western side of the state, so maybe we could do that. I was not bringing it forward. I do understand, and I know you in particular, Mr. Chairman, do a great job with informing your community when your committee's in town, but I don't see that in others. And so until we get, like, say, whether it's an outpost there, the other part of this was just cost, because, and also addressing something that good Chairman Bear brought up about changing philosophies. If we stop funding public television from the government side, when we go back to them and say, hey, we want you to broadcast our meetings, I've got a feeling we're going to get a bigger bill, and it's something we may not be able to afford. So that might be something due to ideological shifts, a door may close for us. And so we may have to rework something there. That's why I was thinking maybe moving towards centralized locations where I've already made the investment, like this building, like the Thyra Thompson and the Riverton office building, as ideas on where to go. But we're not there yet. So I just wanted to throw that out there and give homage to my chairman on that one, because he's the one who always tells me about how good it is to travel around.
Representative Ian.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. I think the one thing I would ask of the chairman is to get with the chairman of the other two committees that have electricity-related topics, so both revenue and minerals have electricity tax on their topic list. Given the 4-day requirement now, I mean, I think it would be best to figure out who's going to tackle that within the three committees.
Representative Bear, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have a question for the chairman regarding NCOIL. You know, there's been quite a bit of discussion today about ideological philosophy. We've had discussions publicly before about Wyoming solutions for Wyoming problems. A lot of these organizations we can join as individuals, or we can attend meetings, get educated. We have a way for paying for travel through this committee for those kinds of things for individual legislators. Is it possible with NCOIL for individuals to travel, get that information, or is it necessary to have a membership?
Chairman?
Mr. Speaker and Representative Bear, NCOIL is, they're somewhat flexible. There are member states, and they have the most representation, but they allow other states to come visit. You don't get a vote on the committees, and you don't get a committee assignment, but they would allow you to attend. That's for sure. The money almost comes back for membership, comes back for travel stipends. That's pretty much what it does. But I would say philosophically, NCOIL is a little bit more conservative than the Association of the Insurance Commissioners and Staff Association. And that has been a rub between the two organizations in the past, but it's a healthy rub. It's kind of the same thing as the legislature versus a regulatory agency. So I don't think there's an ideological gap between them and Wyoming, and even the new Wyoming, sir. And I do think that if we're going to have an influence and learn more, it's better to be a full member. And it's really pretty inexpensive in the big picture of things.
Mr. Chairman.
Just a follow-up. Representative Bear, you good? Okay, thank you, Senator. Senator Nethercott.
Not to go down a rabbit hole here, but we're already in it. So, Senator Case, can you please explain to me the ideological concerns you may or may not have concerning property insurance, NAICS, policy positions concerning ideological concerns, and/or NCOIL? If you could, please. I mean, you touched on it briefly. You indicated NAICS, the National Association of Insurance Commissioners, may have more ideological differences than NCOIL. Just curious about that as applied to property insurance or wildfire coverage. If you could please expound. Thank you.
Chairman Case, please.
I've been trapped, Mr. Speaker.
Yeah, work your way out of that one, sir. Anyway.
I have been trapped. And I will admit that right now. Mr. Speaker, NAICS is the National Association of Insurance Commissioners, and they have Our selection of commissioners varies around the country. There are a few elected commissioners. Most are appointed. And then this would include the insurance staff. They would be public employees, and there are staff committees, and they work on model legislation. There's a lot behind insurance law to try to get uniformity across the country, to keep the feds from preempting us. I would say that overall, I would certainly say that the insurance regulatory body is much more conservative than a lot of things. Insurance people are pretty conservative, all in all. So I wouldn't call it a liberal bastion of any shape or form. But I think that they perhaps, and it's only speculation, I have no facts, and I've been trapped, and I'm going to answer the question. I think, though, that the most of the legislators tend to be more in the conservative vein, business people. That's my experience. I've attended one NAICS meeting before. It is completely anecdotal. And in the past, there've been kind of a rub between the two organizations, but they seem to be working well now. I would say that I overreached on the issue of philosophy, but I know that philosophy is important to members of this committee and important because there's a feeling that the legislature, there's facts on the ground that suggest the legislature is more conservative than it used to be. And so I think we should work within that range. I don't know how to do a better job. I asked for mea culpa to my majority floor leader, but I do think there's those perspectives on it, but those are only my opinions.
Thank you, Senator Case. That was really a very good save. And you have anything to follow up? Well done. Chairman Knapp.
Mr. Chairman, I just wanted to add, so this was just information for the committee to look at in answer to Representative Bear's question. There is a baseline access to this organization without a membership. And that membership, as Chairman Case pointed out, just gives you more voting access to that organization. So,
Any further discussion? So you guys thinking you're going to need more time? I mean, you good with where we're at right now? You don't want to ask for that right now? Or, I mean, you're here right now, if you know, and looking at this list. I mean, you've also got another thing down there with the constitutional apportionment, which was Senate File 174.
May I speak on that? And I know that's a concern for you, Mr. Speaker. We're offering to support that effort. We can't lead that effort, you know, and that was the legislation to try to bring Eastern Wyoming, which has expressed concerns about the lack of following the Constitution with respect to, following the state Constitution with respect to the number of senators and representatives from each county. I remember that the issue there is that the court said that the legislature can ignore that. They didn't direct us to ignore that because there are a couple of theoretical ways you can make that work. One of which is to have a huge legislature. The other one is to have proportional voting. And the third way, which is never talked about, is to change the county lines to match legislative combinations of people. Those are all big lifts. These people express concern about it. They have legitimate concerns. We're offering to help with the effort to educate them if we want to have some hearings in that part of the state and hear people out and explain the possibilities and offering to help. But it's not a committee priority or we expect any legislation.
Granted and understood, but that's all, that's my only question was, is, you know, if you guys are game as a corporation to be able to take that up and to work with those folks. And so if you have the latitude now to be able to do that.
And I would say, we're gonna need 6 days. I'm gonna have to convince him, but honestly, if you like the way this is set out, let's maybe do the first 2 days and get the plan for the rest of the interim together. And maybe that's the appropriate time to ask you for 2 more. But I'm kind of promising you I'm coming back for 2 more.
I think that would be, Mr. Chairman, I'm sorry.
No.
I think that would be appropriate is that we get together and try to pare this down into a 4-day schedule. And if it looks like we need more, we'll request it at that time.
Fair enough. Very good. Any other discussion? Senator Nethercott.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. That is What this particular senator on management council would like to see is a 4-day schedule for corporations. I don't want to go down the presumption that because corporations has a history of a heavy lift, that 6 days is automatic. Recognizing that, I think your committee bill passage rate this last year is reflective of the concern we presented today and the rationale associated with the 4-day committee work. So the bills pass the Senate, they don't pass the House, thus necessitating the need of a 4-day committee interim and more education and informational time. So let's be realistic about that. And I know my county cares deeply about affordable housing, access to housing, workforce housing. That has been a topic on the interim schedule now for at least 6 years with no result. And so saying that against my own community's interests or desires, I just think that perhaps putting that issue on the shelf for a minute, allowing that to cook for a little while on the shelf, recognizing that the time and effort spent on that over the last 6 years has not resulted in any success, that may not be a prudent use of time. But again, that's the chairman's prerogative with the 4-day schedule. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Case?
Mr. Speaker, I concur with the majority floor leader on those statements. Those have not been my favorite topics, but they were ranked in that area by the committee, and thoughtfully so. There are some great advocates for us spending a lot of time on housing. There were bills that were produced last year that, didn't have success. I'm not really a fan of meddling in housing markets and other workforce type solutions that are proposed. I'm really not. But that is what the committee voted. If I would not have heartburn if you move to take those from our purview and lighten our workloads. But you're not going to do that because you're going to give it to me. That's the second trap I fell in.
Okay. Any other discussion? Heiner, Representative.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Chairman, we heard this morning from Director Obereit about working groups and how this is being expanded, and we need to control that a little bit better. In your topic number 2, you mentioned that you're proposing a working group already. Do you anticipate more than just one working group that you will propose, or is this the only one you're thinking of?
Chairman, Senator? Chairman Knapp?
Mr. Chairman, Representative, that was the only one, and I think in our discussions, we'll discuss whether that's prudent, and I don't foresee any other ones coming out of the interim.
Mr. Speaker.
Chairman Case.
Representative Heiner, I won't be quite as promising. I do think there's a good use when you're trying to solve a problem. And that's one thing I also like about 3 meetings in the interim, is because you can take time to look at something, then pull back, think about it some more, and perhaps have a side meeting on it, then come back to the committee and solve problems. And that takes time, maybe 6 days. But the working group is a good tool sometimes to get the knowledgeable people together with maybe practitioners in the industry and brainstorm and do things. I'm a big believer of them if they're productive. As terms of staff, we had a specific electricity subcommittee that was made up of 2 members of minerals revenue and corporations last year that did require a lot of staff time, but I think it was from the beginning the plan of all 3 of those committees to work together and do that, and I think it worked well. We do on occasion have more of an ad hoc working group where we ask people to get together on this particular topic and narrow focus and come back with a solution. We did that with 911. Trying to get the industry and the 911 folks together to talk about network reliability, network reporting, and even funding. That does not typically involve a lot of staff time. Sometimes there's no staff assigned at all. Occasionally staff time, but it's more minimum. I understand the pushback from the LSO, but it depends how they're used, I suppose. And I won't promise no, but I promise to keep you apprised. and we'll figure it out.
Chairman Knapp?
Mr. Chairman, yes, council, we understand the direction you're leaning, and we will have a conference committee to discuss this and come up with our solutions.
Thank you, Chairman. Do you have anything follow-up? Okay, any other discussion? Now, I see we have a member here at the dais. I mean,
Mr. Chairman, if I may.
we're here to hear what's
Thank you,
going on.
and members of the council, I'm Rod Miller. I live in Cheyenne, and I'm here to strongly support the Corporations Committee taking a look at the Wyoming Public Records Act over the interim. And I have to say, I'm not, my comments aren't as a journalist or representative of any publication, but as a citizen. And I'm asking the legislature to help me do my job better as a citizen, because a citizen in our self-governing system can't be effective if the citizen doesn't know what the government is doing. That transparency creates a partnership out of the citizen-government relationship instead of an adversarial relationship. So transparency is hugely important, and I think the Wyoming Public Records Act is an instrument that promises to deliver that transparency, but may have fallen short, evidenced by last year's power suit against the Wyoming Department of Education, which the basis was the production of public records. So I think taking a look at the Wyoming Public Records Act would be a real benefit to Wyoming. The legislature might find that the authority within that act is a little bit too decentralized. There are 100 or 200 public entities covered by the Wyoming Public Records Act, and each entity is supposed to have a designated public records representative within that office. I'll bet $1 to a donut that some of those agencies gave that job to the guy that brings donuts and coffee in the morning. And very few of those designated public records custodians have the necessary experience or training to be document managers, and that's what they are. So I think you might take a look at that. I believe the Wyoming Public Records Act lacks enforcement teeth. The highest award of damages under the act is $700 if someone willfully violates the Wyoming Public Records Act and keeps secrets from the citizenry. I think the enforcement aspect of it should be looked at. And in conclusion, the legislature should examine its own exemption from the Wyoming Public Records Act. I think that is a credibility issue among the public, and you should take a look at that, painful as it may be. So I'm done talking now. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. Appreciate that. Yeah, and we're going to try to keep it, as close as we can, because we do have a massive amount of stuff to try to get through. But we do appreciate you being here. We do appreciate your addressing the committee. Mr. Carini, you have something you'd like to share.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. President, I understand the move that was just made earlier, focusing on quality of the committee bills, not the quantity of them, saving the money, reducing the time. But as we saw at the end of the session, we had a bunch of interim topics throughout every committee on a list. And those were discussed in those committees. They were voted on. Now the chairman of each of those committees are going to pick the ones they're going to deal with. My concern is that we don't have access to that list compiled saying, these are all of the topics that were brought up. Here are the contacts for the people that were interested, so that we can engage our legislators or the potential bringers of those individual bills outside of the committee. So I was wondering if maybe Management Council could work with LSO or direct them to put that list together. All of the interim topics that were suggested, all of the explanations, the citations, and the contacts, so that we can engage as the citizenry while the committees are doing their work during the interim. And it might help reduce not only some of the duplicative bills that we see, but kind of the low quality repeating nature in the wrong direction that we've seen coming from some more of the individual bills. But I think this is a great opportunity to increase public engagement. The piece that might be missing from that is access to those lists. all compiled, say, this one's already handled, picked up by this committee, this is what's still out there. Because sometimes it does take 6 years to get an idea off the ground. You know this as legislators, and we have to be, as the public, able to not only engage in that process, be committed to it for 2, 4, or 6 years, knowing that this is the person that's working on it. We're not doing the double work. So maybe a conversation or direction to LSO to publicize all of those interim topics, what's already being covered by committees, so that we can engage with our representatives or the representative of another district who's working the idea. I would appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Carani. Any other discussion? Any questions for the folks? Seeing none? Thank you. Senator Nethercott, please.
Mr. Chairman, just a question for Director Obrecht potentially. It's my recollection, which could be mistaken, that when the committees meet during session to discuss interim topics, that all of those proposals, are they provided to the public at that time, or are those somehow kept separately? And if so, can we provide that direction now, Council?
Director Obrecht.
Mr. Chairman, those are published during the session, and we could leave a link live for that as well afterwards. I think more than anything, they're removed for, to not create confusion. And all the proposed interim topics that come from each committee, even if they're not ultimately adopted by Management Council, those are included as meeting material for this meeting every single year.
All right. Thank you, Director. Appreciate the question. Thank you, Mr. Carandi. Ma'am, if you could please identify yourself for the live stream, and please proceed.
Thank you. My name is Jill Kaufman. I'm from Platte County. I'm just an ordinary gal, an ordinary citizen that when I was assigned from our committee in Platte County, we were to look at the elections. So we dug deep into the election systems and found out that we had much fraud, and a lot of things that everybody already knows. Technology is very vulnerable. We do need education in Wyoming. One of the things we need to educate a lot is our clerks, because what we have found is in their logic and accuracy testing, they were not up to par according to our statutes and also to the VVSG requirements through the EAC system. So what we also have found that the executive order that Trump has put out has put a lot of burden on a lot of states, because we now have to basically uphold our laws. And that's what I encourage us all to do. So I do believe we need extra time in our corporations to be able to educate and answer questions to anybody and everyone that would need to do that. We have brought in cyber experts from across the country who have had many hours of diving into the election systems and finding fraud, finding misnomers in the public, and so on. So I just wanted to encourage you to allow for extra time for education of the population of Wyoming. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Kaufman. Any questions for Ms. Kaufman? Seeing none, thank you for coming. We appreciate you taking time to come and visit with us today, ma'am. Senator Case, unless you have something you'd like to offer, we'll let you go.
Mr. Speaker, I think I'm the next committee too, so, but.
Letting you go on corporations.
Yeah,
now you're back.
Yeah, I appreciate the public testimony. We've heard from a lot of people on corporations.
Senator Beitman, please.
I would make a motion to grant the request of the chairman of corporations to approve their one-year membership to the National Council of Insurance Legislators.
Mr. Chairman, and if it's okay with the co-chairman, maybe we took testimony on that. Maybe we take it up during the other business. We've got a lot of other related issues to that. This really isn't an interim topic sort of request. It's more of a request like for travel reimbursement that Management Council handles all the time. And I think we'll hear another request from for state lands, and we can take that up under other business. Right. Maybe that'll be a more holistic approach.
Be more efficient. All right, I'll withdraw the motion.
Okay, motion's been withdrawn. Thank you. Okay, next meeting, our next committee for our consideration. We need Senator's Case and corporations. Ivan Posey. Hello, Ivan, or excuse me, Representative Chairman Posey. Welcome to the chamber.
Good morning, Mr. Speaker,
Please
President,
proceed,
members of the Management Council. Don't bait you. Thank you for streamlining the process, Senator Nethercott, this morning. And I think that's good news for Senator Case and I, or Chairman Case, and I, as we move forward on some of our topics relating to the state-tribal relations. Of course, education is always the top priority on a reservation, and that's one that we agreed on in juvenile justice. You know, in reference to juvenile justice, I read a report, I don't know, about 3 weeks ago, about the increase of juvenile crime. It happens on a reservation, it happens in our state, and I think it's one area that we need to collaborate on and continue to address. Education, obviously, we have 3 reservation schools, one that is state-funded, one that is funded under the Bureau of Indian Education, and that is St. Stephen's School. And they all pretty much have the same concerns. I think we'd like to follow up on see how the Indian Education for All Act is progressing over these years. That's almost been 10 years now. Health is another issue, obviously, that's pretty broad. The Shoshone tribe currently contracted the services from the United States government under Public Law 638, which allows tribes to contract certain services from the federal government. That act was signed into law by President Ford in 1975. The Arapaho tribe in the past 8-9 years contracted before the Shoshones and has done an exceptional job in healthcare delivery for tribal members. Our priority number 3 is an update on missing and murdered persons and law enforcement jurisdiction. And I remember in our last session here, my brother Arthur brought up about Representative Washut brought up the checkerboard jurisdiction relating to the area of the reservation. You know, we have Bureau of Indian Affairs, we have the DIA, we have the Fremont County Sheriffs, we have the City of Landers, City of Riverton, so it's pretty checkerboard. And so it's probably the most checkerboard jurisdiction in the whole state of Wyoming. And obviously, that's something that we would like to approach. And of course, some of these based on a motion and actions of the Management Council this morning, Chairman Case and I will go back and look at some of these. And some have been carryovers from the past. And I'll have Chairman Case discuss some of the stuff that's been carried over. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Speaker. I think issues of understanding regarding the role of the state and the role of the sovereign nations of the Wind River Indian Reservation is it's always ripe, and it has a huge educational component. People change on both sides. There's a lot of change in the makeup of our committee. There's a change in the makeup of the legislature, and there's change in the makeup of the governance of both the Shoshone and the Arapaho tribe. So sometimes looking at the same issue is not necessarily, I wouldn't call it plowing the same ground. Just take the example of missing and murdered people on the reservation. We didn't begin to actually focus on those numbers till just a couple of years ago, and we've been able to do better and better job of sharing information to get alerts up faster when someone goes missing. But we have a long, long way to go. Jurisdictional things are just amazingly difficult, and it always pays to bring those people together in a meeting and ask them questions and see if you can get them to work together a little bit better. I think in terms of our schedule, we only provided for 2 meetings, so I think we're safe. We ought to sneak out the back door now. We were proposing to have the first meeting in Fort Washakie. We just looked at another meeting to accommodate Senator Salazar. The vice president had a conflict on one of our dates, so we changed it. And then we have left open the second date, but the hope is that we would have one meeting on the reservation and a second meeting either in Cheyenne or Laramie, for example, to try to include more people from the state in those discussions. So I'm not sure how you feel about we don't typically use all of the second day, and it's just a day and a half meeting, or it always runs long. So let's call it 2-day meetings, but two-day meetings was in our plan to begin with.
Very good. Thank you, Chairman. Any discussion? Any questions for the chairman? Seeing none, thank you for your time. Look forward to good work. Next up for our consideration will be our labor health. Senator Chairman Barlow, and we also have Chairman Rodriguez-Williams online with us, so welcome, Chairman. Please proceed, Senator.
Good morning, Council. Good morning, Mr. Chairman. I'm going to self-impose a 2-minute limit on my part of the presentation. So in dividing this up between my co-chair and I, she was going to take the topics, and so if there's any questions on the topics or any comments that my co-chair would like to make on the topics or questions from the committee, please, Madam Co-Chairman.
Representative Chairman Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Co-Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members of council. I present to you the interim topics for labor and health during the interim. Our priority number 1 was maternal medical care in Wyoming and maternal care deserts. The committee will review the recommendations of the governor's health task force regarding maternal medical care and maternity care deserts throughout the state. And both of us have been in touch with the executive branch on that topic. Priority number 2, rural emergency services and emergency medical services, ambulance. Priority number 3, restricting use of AI to determine insurance eligibility and prior authorization. Priority number 4, toxicology and death certificates and the relationships between mental health disability and drug abuse, drug and alcohol abuse. Priority number 5, traditional medicine inclusion in healthcare and naturopathic licensure. And then priority number 6, agency department reports and reviews.
Thank you, Chairman. We have some questions for us. Senator Salazar.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Just a quick question, maybe we can talk offline, but I know that the Joint Appropriations Committee had also maternity care pressures as a subject that we wanted to tackle, but given the fact that you're also addressing that issue, maybe at a later time we could discuss whether it's needed that both committees need to discuss that, but I haven't talked to my co-chair, and so something that maybe we could work out.
Thank you. Certainly, my co-chairman, if she has any comments, Mr. Chairman.
Representative Williams, any comments?
Mr. Chairman, members of the council, and Senator Salazar, no comments. I'm happy to talk offline. I think Chairman Barlow and I are more than happy to collaborate with you all. I think it's important to recognize that there has been recommendations that have come out of the task force and collaborating with the executive branch, and those recommendations is important moving forward. So we're working on getting the minutes and some more information from that task force as to what work they have done and what recommendations they do have for all of us moving forward.
Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you.
Chairman Barlow, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll follow up just a little bit. I think there will both be potential of policy discussions and funding or appropriation issues. And certainly it's most appropriate for the appropriations to go to the Appropriations Committee. And if there are policy adjustments, statutory Green Book adjustments, I think those are appropriate for the Labor Health Committee. So I think that's how we can potentially sort this out. Anyway, that's one thing. The second thing I would say more broadly, Mr. Chairman and members of the council, is We can handle these 6 topics in our 4 days. If we need more, we'll come back to you. The third thing I would say is that priority number 6 is actually my priority personally, number 1, because that's educational. That is having those agencies that we interact with, Department of Health, Department of Insurance, Department of Family Services, Department of, one more, Workforce Services, et cetera, and having them come in. We have multiple new members, as you would know, on our committee, new legislators on our committee have not had the benefit of interacting with these agencies, et cetera, and the policies, programs, et cetera, and also helps us prepare for the budget session that is coming forth and understanding that. I think that's actually would be something every committee should do, is interact with their agencies at that level. What are your programs? What is your budget? What are you anticipating? And finally, Mr. Chairman and members of council, received a email yesterday from one of our colleagues on the committee saying, hey, there's big changes happening at the federal level that are going to impact state programs, particularly these programs that have federal dollars, et cetera, associated with state dollars, so Medicaid being one of those. So that's also going to be a priority for, I believe, this committee. I'm probably getting close to my 2 minutes, but if you look at our meeting schedule, 2 things. One, we talked about is committee and working groups. That has actually been very effective in this committee to actually deal with some issues that are maybe thornier than some. And that's insurance issues or whatever, and that has been very effective. Representative Clouston had 2 or 3 bills in the last couple interims that he worked with the stakeholders and then brought those products to us. I don't believe it took much of staff time, so I think it is a way that we can actually advance things in a less formal setting, but still bring it to the public when we have something to work on with. The last thing is you'll see our meeting dates and places. My co-chair would like to have a meeting in another place in the state, and I'm certainly open to that. The October, you'll see a big jump. June, educational in my view, and kind of give that first cut at the topics. October is after the federal fiscal year. We're going to have a better idea of what the federal government does with some of these programmatic things. And that was at the suggestion of the senior serving member of this legislature, Senator Scott. He said, when you see these kind of big impacts, you better save some time for right before the session, because you are going to have to potentially make some policy changes, and appropriations is going to have to take up things. They naturally have that time. We may not if we burn our days. So that's why I suggested this. So October, and then a subsequent meeting if we should need it. And obviously, the first meeting may be 2 days, the next one may be 1 and 1 to fit within your direction. So, Mr. Chairman, I'd be glad to stand for any questions, and thank you. And by the way, I think this is the 5th committee. I think you're right on time.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Chairman Williams. Any discussion, any questions for the good committee chairs? Seeing none, thank you very much. Appreciate your time, ladies and gentlemen. Next committee for our consideration will be...
Mr. Chairman, I'm
Yes.
sorry.
Yes, please, proceed, Matt.
Senator Barlow would like to present another request to council, and then we'll take that up during other items of business. But he just wants to present it
And I
now.
had that wrote down, that's buried underneath a mountain of paper here. Yes, Senator Barlow, please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So, and I apologize to the council. There was a letter I prepared weeks ago and didn't, I guess, pull the trigger to get it included in your material. So there is a letter, a couple-page letter, that outlines this process. I'll give you the briefest overview of what it is. There is a state lands forum being put on by the Ruckelshaus Hobb Institute. That is actually a natural outgrowth of management audit over the last 2 interims. And that some of that history is in that letter. And like I said, again, I apologize. You'll take it up more officially later. But this forum has kind of been put together by a stakeholder group and we can visit about who was on the stakeholder group, et cetera. But it's basically to try to understand, what do state lands look like going forward? How we use them, manage them, and reap the benefits from them in support of our public schools. That forum is coming up in a couple weeks. My request is that Management Council consider supporting that. Supporting legislators that want to attend. There's a $100 registration fee, and of course, maybe it's a 2-day if you wanted to consider giving folks per diem for that. It's not a legislative day, so probably maybe pay isn't appropriate, but at least per diem. And then supporting the broader project as well. Now, obviously, paying the registration supports the broader project. But, so anyway, and I think this is unique in many ways. We have a lot of interesting and new well, we have a lot of interest, how's that, in using state lands for a variety of purposes, some of them quite novel, and we are seeing pressures around the state in different places. If you watch a SLIB board meeting, you will hear about some of those interests. Just last week, a lot of those came forth. So I think this is an interesting time to have this. As you know, there was some, I guess, maybe one person from, two people from Management Council. Management Audit was tasked with coming with an RFP about what we should be doing with state lands, et cetera. I just did not feel that was the way to go. I thought we should have a public engagement with the stakeholders, et cetera. So this happened to fortuitously come together, and I'm certainly supportive of it. We'll be attending. To date, I think there's over 100 people attending, including 9 legislators that signed up. I've got several others that have told me they're going to plan on being there as well. So I think you're going to see good legislative participation. So that's my request. I'd be glad to go into further details. Ms. Birch-Malatke is online if you have questions for the organizer and what the intent is. The agenda is posted online. And like I said, I apologize this didn't get to you sooner. But I'm just going to give you the overview and you'll take it up later, and I can be available later as well if there's specific questions, or Birch can. So, Mr. Chairman, that is the request. My request is twofold. One, encourage members to go participate. As you know, we're going to have a new state lands director, and we'll have a new, maybe, deputy director by the time this begins. So it's a good time to engage existing users, future potential users, and say, what do we want state lands? How do we want to deal with this in a way? I went through some of the topics on other committees. You know, grazing always comes up, wind, et cetera. We're gonna continue having these discussions. So this is maybe a forum to bring folks together, stakeholders together, and chart a course forward to have this discussion. So thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of council.
Thank you, Senator. Any discussion or questions for the good senator? Seeing none, thank you, sir. Appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Okay, next up, we've got Select Federal Natural Resources. Senator Ide and Representative Chairman Wharf, please. Whomever would like to start, please proceed.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Speaker, Mr. President, members of the Management Council. Good discussion earlier today. I think we're on track with everything that was discussed regarding time and efficiency, cost. We've got 3 meetings scheduled, one-day meetings throughout the interim. And we've got 6 topics here. You guys have probably read them. I think we can accomplish that pretty easy. My co-chair, we haven't discussed it much, but I think we can maybe cover 2 topics per meeting, and I think we've got a really good slate of topics here and a really good committee on this select committee. You know, we're going to kind of hit the highlights of a lot of things that have been going on front and center with our federal lands and our federal, you know, mineral resources, and you know, all the fires that we've had. I wanted to comment real quick on the fires. Just last Friday, the new USDA secretary just announced 112 million acres to be opened up in our national forests, and which is about 59% of it, to streamline logging, timber harvest, fire mitigation. So we have the wind at our back, and that is one of our topics here. You know, the other one that I want to hit on, then my co-chairman can maybe speak further, but you know, our federal mineral royalties, we're going to have, I think, good discussion there. The you know, our share of the federal mineral royalties is 50%. I think we want to maybe get into discussions to where we can structure something maybe like Alaska and potentially get more of those federal mineral royalties coming to the state of Wyoming. And with the federal oil and gas leasing, I talked to our good president here. We had a little discussion on this about trying to get the state maybe to have discussions about us running federal mineral oil and gas lease sales. I mean, we've been crippled here since that last administration. They essentially shut it down. I was looking at all of the reports. You know, we had 160 acres last summer out of 42 million that were on the docket for federal oil and gas lease sales, and only 80 acres of that sold, about $27,000. So it's gotten a little better the last 2 lease sales, but compared to the past when we had hundreds of thousands of acres on those lease sales, we really need to address that and get the federal authorities in front of us. And I think this administration is very sympathetic. We've all seen Drill Baby Drill, and we want to carry that on as hard as we can here. So thank you, and I'll turn it over to my co-chair.
Chairman Wharf, please.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members of the Management Council, I share the optimism, my good chairman. I think it's just the perfect timing. It's a perfect storm. I think the opportunities there for the state to start assuming a lot more opportunities that lies ahead. I'm anxious to look at the road closures that have been proposed by some of the federal agencies. I know it was reported to us that one of our neighboring states actually took that over, and they started to develop their own road management policies. And I'm excited. I really think it's a perfect storm. We've got an administration that I think favors the states assuming more responsibilities. And most of you already know I'm pretty outspoken. I think the state has more power and authority than we've been exercising. And I really look forward to having that opportunity. I do think it's a good idea to look at trying to cut down on our meetings, make them more efficient. As my good co-chair said, we can handle it the 3 days that we have scheduled. But I do applaud the efforts of the Management Council to try to rein that in a little bit and maybe keep us more on task. But with that, I stand for any questions.
Thank you, Chairman. Any discussion, any questions? Representative Heiner.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Chairman Ide and Chairman Wharf, historically, this committee has met for 2 one-day meetings, except for in 2023. With the conversation we've had this morning, trying to reduce the amount of meetings, is it possible to have just 2 one-day meetings rather than 3?
Gentlemen.
Mr. Speaker, Representative Heiner, I think that's always a possibility. The one thing I don't want to do is I don't want to give us the time that we may need. I really think that that's an opportunity that may present itself, but I don't want to get halfway through and think, man, we needed another day. We do have a lot of big topics dealing with a lot of the federal agencies, and it may take all 3 of those days in order to get that done. And I have no problem trying. If we could do 3 things a day, that's fine, and possibly reserve that 3rd day in the event that we have the need for an additional meeting to kind of close the gap on some things. But I have no problem trying to get it done in 2 of those 3 days. I just don't want to commit to doing that because this is a heavy lift. I mean, we're going to be doing some pretty big things, and it may require those 3 days, but I'm more than willing to try to get it done in 2.
Mr. Speaker, Mr. President, Representative Heiner, I would concur with my colleague here. I think that 2 of those days are real important, and the last one isn't. We've got one scheduled in Pinedale, which is close to maybe the timber conversation that we need to have, and one of our members of our committee, Representative McKay Erickson, he's in the timber industry, and so I think it's important to be there, and Senator Dockstader is over there as well, so we're trying to schedule some of the Forest Service stuff to show up at that meeting. And then the second meeting is actually in Buffalo, which is a little closer to where a lot of the fire problems were up there as well. So, but I'm all on board to try to get rid of that 3rd meeting if it's possible. Thank you.
One follow-up, Representative Heiner.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So in 2023, that's what happened is there was a one-day extension asked of the Management Council because of the RMP that was going on in Rock Springs, which extended the meetings a little bit. So would that be okay if we just did a 2-day and you planned for 2 days, and then if you needed extra time, you came back to the Management Council for a request for an extension for an additional day? Is that something that you could work with as chairman?
You know, I would like to keep it open maybe a little bit. You know, you mentioned, sorry, Mr. Speaker, Mr. President,
Please proceed. You're fine.
Representative Heiner. You mentioned the RMPs. That's another thing on our list here, as I'm sure you probably saw, and we want to spend some time on the Buffalo RMP and the Rock Springs RMP as well, just to really get that vetted out and figure out where we are on those and you know, push back where we can if that's what we need to do on what's going to come out of Washington.
Senator Biteman, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Chairman Worf and Chairman Ide, thank you for this. This was the best, I think, of all the letters we got. Statutory responsibilities, boom, and then you laid it out. This committee, I think, what you guys are embarking on for this interim is probably has the most potential for economic development for the state of Wyoming of all the committees that we're going to hear from today. So I think it's vitally important you use those 3 days because you have a huge lift. 69% of the minerals in the state of Wyoming are controlled by the feds. That's an economic driver. And you guys are tasked with opening those up and getting results. Half the surface area is owned by the feds, controlled by the feds. The timber industry is a potential boom controlled by the feds. The bighorns burned up because we didn't log it, right? They had years and decades of undergrowth, underbrush, and poor management. I want to get to the bottom of that. And you two are the perfect chairman to get to the bottom of why our forests are burning down. So please take the time and the effort and dive into this. This is your opportunity. You've got 2 years to do this. And thank you for taking this up. And what you guys could possibly produce could be an economic driver for the state of Wyoming for the years to come. So thank you.
Senator Grew.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, I echo the statements from the good president. I actually think you're probably going to need those 3 days. And my question was, and it came from actually one of the other chairmen, that third meeting in October, did you guys all talk about, given what's going on at the federal level, about moving that to into that month to coincide with the end of the federal year? So see more what's coming out of Washington at that time with the budgets and all that, that may impact what you're doing greatly. And I just don't know, but did you all discuss that?
Chairman?
Mr. Chairman, Senator Grew, we really didn't. I mean, we looked at everybody's calendar. Obviously, you know, we've got a lot of members that are on multiple committees, but I'm not opposed to looking at that. I think we have the flexibility to move that meeting should it be warranted, but that's actually a good suggestion. I appreciate it.
Follow up? Good. Any others? Gentlemen, unless you have something else you'd like to offer, I guess you're off.
Well, Mr. Speaker, Mr. President, I'd just like to offer one last thing that I thought my co-chair would bring up, but you won't have any trouble naming anybody on the committee. We have 3 Bobs and 2 Dans, so just that way.
So if you say Bob or Dan, somebody's going to respond. Right? Okay,
Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. Look forward to all you're going to produce for the state of Wyoming. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, because you can't think and you can't function if you can't feel your feet, I think it'd be a great idea to stand up, and we'll take about a 10-minute break, and then we'll be right back at this. So please take 10 minutes and we'll be right back here. It is 10:49. We'll be back here at, well, we'll be back here at 11. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, if we could go ahead and get back, it's 11 o'clock. We've got a lot going on here, so we want to try to expedite things and keep this ball rolling. Let's find our seats and press ahead. Hey, Ian, if you want to call on those folks outside, I see you heading outside. Mr. Shaw. Representative Bear. Ladies and gentlemen, let's go ahead and get started. I tell you what, this is going to be a long day, and so let's get back at it. At the risk of offending my house needs, look at this. I got my chairman, both chairmans are here to present their topics, and my House members are still doing something undescribed out in the hallway. Yeah. Okay, we'll go ahead and we'll call it back into order. I know I'm missing a couple of folks, 3 folks, and we're missing actually Matt Obrecht. That's kind of important to have him here probably. So give a few more minutes here. So. Now's the time to blow out the budget, boys. Yeah, if you're gonna do something stupid, right now's the time. Okay, those are just chairmen. Not just chairman, but members need to be in. Okay, well, Chairman, please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
They will have to get here and hopefully they'll watch the video.
Yeah, they can come in when appropriate. So thank you for receiving our letter. With the action this morning, my good co-chair on the Senate side is going to have some discussion after I get done here. But I think the best thing to do is obviously our pinch for time is we have a meeting in 3 weeks. So we've already agreed quickly this morning. We're going to have to push that Du Bois meeting. But generally, we did great work in the committee in both the Senate and the House side, and we pared it down from probably about 15 to 20 pretty reasonable priorities down to 6. And I think that, obviously, given our TRW topic, priority 1, 2, 3 is really important. Earlier in our colleagues on ag talked about priority number 3, landowners, tags, and licenses. We feel just as passionately as they do that we should take a look at that, although it probably will be a bit briefer in our committee. And then as we flip over to the back page, obviously, priorities 4 and 5, I think, are the hot topic ones. And given our schedule that got shrunk down, I think that we're going to have to take a good hard look on whether or not we can really do the lift of 4 and 5, and I'll let my good co-chair talk about number 5, but I think it's appropriate to stand for questions related to priorities 1, 2, and 3 at this time on the front page of the letter that was sent to you, and I'm happy to answer any of those if you have them.
Okay, questions from the committee? Seeing none, Senator Landon, Chairman Landon.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Appreciate that. I want to call your attention to priority 5. Primarily, the co-chairman and I placed that as one of your priority items, more to acknowledge that this is the home committee for gaming and all the issues related thereof. And so we listed that as a priority. We think that given the good conversation this morning, that is a topic that we would set aside. We might still take a look at the lottery piece. That's a request by our county commissioners to get a good look at that. I think we can still lift that without any problem, but I would commend to the Management Council this entire issue of gaming. I think we all know that we've got a big one there, and I think that it probably would require quite a bit more than one single standing committee can do in an interim, unless you want to give us 6 or 8 more days and 2 or 3 more staff. We've got a great committee, and I have confidence that they could tackle something like that, but it would be a lot. So I would just remind the Management Council that issue is out there, it's there, it's important. That thing has gotten a lot bigger than it used to be. And so I wanted to point that out. I would also say that we may come back to you and ask for an additional day at the end of this interim, Mr. Chairman, as a Zoom call to maybe finish up a bill, particularly on the riverfront. You might remember we had a very big issue that both sides dealt with during the session, and that is the impact on our waterways. That's a big policy concern. If it's going to involve some regulation, we want to make sure that's done right. We think we could work that all the way through the 4 days, but then there may be a day in late November, for example, that we would want to put finishing touches on a piece of legislation. So that's just kind of a heads up that we may come back to you all for that. We'd be happy to answer any questions or have any discussion about any of these topics. Appreciate it, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Chairman. Senator Nethercott?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Chairman Landon, thank you. Curious, I do agree that the travel committee has historically taken up gaming. And is that because just historical practice, or because the home committee is typically something that's more specifically designated by Management Council associated with appropriate topic matter for the committee, like crime and courts goes to Judiciary, game and fish, travel and rec historically, right? So those topics, are we considering gaming recreation or the lottery recreation and thus it goes to travel, or how did it get designated the home committee, if you could?
Well, Chairman, Mr. Chairman, thank you, Senator, for that question. That has just been historic to my knowledge, and I'm not sure why it ever ended up there, but it has been, for as long as I can remember, that's kind of where that part of the world resided. In fact, Senator Guru might be able to weigh in on that as well. That has necessarily gravitated over to our Appropriations Committee, as you know, Senator. It's even touched a couple of other committees, but so I just think it's going to take some ponderance on the part of the Management Council as to where do we want to go with this whole gaming piece. It's gotten bigger and bigger. We've gone from lotteries and little machines that were going to support live horse racing all the way to what we have now, which is all kinds of online gaming. We've got parlors all over the state, those kind of things. So I think it's a heavy lift. And sorry I didn't answer your question very well, Senator, but it's been in TRW for quite a long time, I think.
A follow-up, Mr. Chairman?
Follow-up, please.
And so with that, I do think that Management Council needs to identify a standing committee that would be formally considered the home committee for gaming and the Gaming Commission, particularly for what committee the Gaming Commission reports to. I think that that's a helpful conversation, recognizing it could be a variety of committees depending on the type of work the legislature may be doing based on gaming. But I think it'd be a good idea for us to identify that. I'm curious to hear from the travel committee whether or not you think it's prudent to continue to be the quote-unquote home committee for gaming, or if another committee would be better suited.
Chairman?
So, Mr. Chairman, thank you. And Senator, I'm following and I agree with you. I guess, can't speak for the co-chairman, but we haven't had an opportunity to really visit about that. I haven't talked to many of the constituent groups either, as far as that goes. We'd be happy to consider that and get back to you, or certainly would take any direction that the Management Council would give us. Mr. Co-Chairman?
Chairman Byron?
Mr. Chairman, Senator, and I think, obviously, I look back on this previous session and we did open that can of worms again. It had landed back in appropriations, just for historical knowledge of this body, and we did offer with just looking at some legislation that's floating out in other committees that we could bring it into our committee to try to solve a couple of those issues. And some of those made it through certain bodies, some of those didn't. And I think at this point, I would volley that right back to you. I don't know if I would say I regret opening that can of worms, but it certainly encompassed a lot of our time in this last general session for a newer committee, and I think we did a great job lifting it, but that group of lobbyists and those people involved came out very strong, and there was a really good bill that had been worked really hard through the interim that ultimately didn't make it, that a lot of folks are still talking about. So like I said, after this morning's decision, we had to take a quick look at our schedule, and that was where we identified, hopefully putting some pressure back on you good folks to figure out where you want that to land and how you want that to look. And I know we've been getting great feedback from LSO about some of these different non-standing committee options, but that's certainly where the good co-chair and I have landed. I think it requires so much work and it's so wild right now, and there's so many needs that I really think that needs to be considered on your side of the desk. So that can get, hopefully some of those issues can get solved for our state.
Thank you, Chairman. Any follow-up? Senator?
Mr. Chairman, just to the council and for a point of conversation for an idea that may or may not be good. The topic of gaming, I think, is really critical for the state, and the legislature, I think, is behind in being forward-thinking and responsive to the needs of the state when it comes to gaming issues. And so I think we've discussed the idea of perhaps creating a task force, recognizing the lack of desire, which I share, to not create additional task forces or more work, but still recognizing that I think the unique and critical need of gaming. One committee that would not be necessarily on point for gaming, but who has experience within the legislature and potentially the time, when I look at their interim topic list, would be transportation. Again, I recognize that gaming is not a topic that would typically fall within transportation's scope of work, but there are a number of legislators on that committee that have served on other committees associated with gaming, and so it's not a completely new learning curve on the topic, and they also have, it appears, available time. I have not discussed that with the majority of you or the Transportation Committee either. It just was an observation I had made, recognizing we have this overarching need to deal with gaming issues and the logistical challenges of legislator time and availability. So just throwing that out there for further discussion and let it sit. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Thoughts, discussion, questions for our TRW chairman?
Mr. Chairman, just a couple of final thoughts. We'll take good care of some of the other topic areas. We have constituent groups in the arts and the humanities, and We know how big tourism is for our state. We're not going to ignore any of those issues along the way. But appreciate the thoughts from the good senator from here in town. I would say that I have a lot of confidence in this committee that I've been privileged to be able to chair with this guy sitting next to me. And I know that we could lift a lot of weight. It's just whether or not we feel like we can take it up during this interim. The volume of work, I think, is pretty significant. And so just to underline that piece, we're not trying to dodge anything, but we are encouraging maybe a little bit more of a 30,000-foot view there than just from a committee level, so.
Any thoughts?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. In closing, I would concur with that and just recognize that so much of this is our agency reports too, and my good co-chair alluded to that, but, and Senator Grew alluded to it earlier. You know, we do have the privilege of getting to go put boots on the ground and see what's going on in our state parks and our game fish projects, directly engaging with the Wyoming Office of Tourism, which is so important for our number 2 industry. So I think that I think we're going to be able to pull it off, but I do want to recognize that, and I think it was mentioned earlier, how important those agency reports are, and we're going to continue to get those each meeting and hopefully bring that back to the larger 2 bodies and inform them of all the good work that those departments are doing. So with that, stand for questions, and thank you.
Any further discussion with the committee? Seeing none. Thank you, gentlemen. Good luck. Farewell. Look forward to your work. Next for our consideration will be our Select Committee on School Facilities. You're going to hang around, which is a good idea. And Representative Angelos is Vice Chair. And we have her online. So we have you, Senator Landon, in-house. So we'll let you start and go from there.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. You stuck with me for just a little bit longer here, and thank you for your consideration on the agenda to allow me to go back to back today. I'm sitting here as chairman again of the Select School Facilities Committee, and very pleased to have the opportunity to serve with Representative Angelos, who will serve as the vice chairman for the next couple of years on the Select Committee. Just a couple of notes to start the conversation this morning, Council. And in front of you, you have the 4 priorities that we've outlined. They're pretty straightforward, but I would just say this, Mr. Chairman, I'm one of the long-timers on that committee, and it's one of the hardest working committees I've ever been involved with. For those of you who've had the opportunity to serve, a lot of work goes into the effort to bring forth what is statutorily required of this Select Committee. We take a look at condition and capacity and suitability. We try to develop through 3 different meetings a comprehensive, well-vetted effort that comes to you in the form. Sometimes we go through the appropriations process, sometimes it gets pulled out of the appropriations process. But school facilities, I think, has worked very, very hard to try to get where we need to go. There's always room for modifications or changes, and we're certainly willing to take any directive from the Management Council as to what kind of things you want to see back from us. But let me take you to the priorities real quickly. We think it's important, the Vice Chairman and I, that we provide a lot of education for the Select Committee this time, simply because there's really only about 2.5 of us old timers left on the committee, and we're anxious to get everyone up to speed and help them understand all that goes into what I just described. So we want to spend a little bit of time with that. The first, I think it's important that we at least take a look at, I'm not sure how robust the conversation can be, but we want to take a look at the court decision because it specified facilities, Mr. Chairman, in that decision. We also list charter school facilities for you to understand that we want to take a look at that, because I think that looms, especially with all the work that we did on charter schools during this recently completed session. We want to review the educational suitability piece in Chapter 3, Section 8. that's a piece that is allowed for the districts to have quite a bit of purview in listing suitability concerns and bringing them to us for remedy. We want to take a careful look at that and make sure that that the legislature stands where it needs to. And finally, an important topic that was brought up by Senator Driscoll during this last session that I thought deserved our time and effort, and that's eliminating school districts' ability to use major maintenance and enhancement funding for efforts that we maybe don't know about. So those are the 4 things that we hope to spend a little bit of time on, Mr. Chairman. With your approval, I would ask if the Vice Chairman wants to add anything to that.
Absolutely. Vice Chair Angelos, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Can you hear me okay?
Please proceed.
Mr. Chairman and committee, I would just like to echo the words of the good chairman there that I feel like we really did pare this down. I think we had 8 or 9 topics. We pared it down to a simple 4, and they are very pressing. We're down to 3 days, and I think we can get it done. We do have a very new committee, myself being one of the new members on that committee, and it is going to take a little bit of time. I was teasing Senator Landon that if they just read through the lawsuit, that is an education in itself. So, but excited to take a look at these topics. I think they're pressing, and they were rightly chosen by the committee. So I stand for questions.
Thank you, Representative Angelos. Any questions for the good chairs? Seeing none? Nope. Senator Grube, please.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. You were talking about major maintenance and Senator Driscoll's bill and all that. Is part of that too coming out of what happened in Campbell County with the high school and major maintenance funds and some of the questions that have been kind of floating around out there about that? And I'm not singling them out. I didn't mean to single them out. I know when I mentioned this to my school district, they all turned about 3 shades of pale because it seemed like there was more behind that question than met the eye, let's say. Is that kind of the gist of it?
Chairman Landon.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. Senator, there's a little bit more to that than just the writing on the page. I think, and Representative Angelos may want to weigh in on that as well, because she was very close to the issues up there in Campbell County. But I think that, again, that's part of the education piece. We may not find anything that we would suggest to all of you that we change, but I think understanding exactly what the capabilities are with that funding. Are we at the right percentage point? I think sometimes we allow for 10% flexibility on some things. We just want to take a look at that and make sure that we can come back to you all and say, look, I think we're in as good a place as we can be, but maybe the Vice Chairman has a little bit more she'd like to add.
Vice Chair Angelos.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and committee. I was actually a co-sponsor on that bill that we were discussing. And I think when you write a bill or propose a bill, you kind of, you get educated on it. And then you also kind of figure out maybe some areas that are being left out. And I think that really brings to light some of the things. I was talking with Chairman Landon yesterday that some of those issues that came up is our CTE spaces are not being adequately, the major maintenance funds do not cover those, and maybe some of the spaces within gymnasiums and things like that that came up that was like, oh, well, this is actually an issue, maybe they're not being adequately funded. So a lot of times with bills like that, things come up, and something that I've spoke with Senator Driscoll about. So education, and then just taking a relook at, and I think some of those things will come up in recalibration as well.
Follow up. Senator Grube, very good. Any other discussion? Seeing none? Thank you, Chairman.
Mr. Chairman, thank you.
Have a
Appreciate your
successful
time.
summer. We look forward to your work.
Okay.
Next
thank
for
you.
our consideration will be education. Senator Schuler and Representative Ocean Andrew. Good Senator Schuler is right here.
Yep.
And we have Representative Andrew online. Welcome, Senator Schuler. Glad to have you. Please proceed.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Is it still morning? I'm not sure.
It is.
Didn't look at my
For
clock.
another 35 minutes.
All right, well, I'll try to get you through this pretty quickly. I gather that we need to try and figure out a way to kind of narrow our topics down or possibly look at 2 less days. So I've been, texting back and forth, the good representative over there, and we think 6 days, we really need them. But if that is not the will of the committee, we'll do our best to pare them down. Our first priority is school discipline. We're seeing more and more issues in the schools with children, especially children that are in the lower grades. I think there's a lot of reasons for it. I think that's what we want to find out. The Hathaway Scholarship, we want to kind of put that under the microscope, take a closer look at that. I took number 6. I took 1, 2, and 6, and we're going to let Representative Andrew talk about the others. But 6 is the retention and recruitment of teachers. Again, we're starting to see some shortages around the state. Some districts are doing okay, others are not. So we want to take a look at that. And I'll turn the time over to Representative Ocean.
Chairman Andrew, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So the other 3 we wanted to work on were charter schools. We passed a removal of the charter school cap, and I think that we want to take a look at ways to make our charter authorizing board run more efficiently, look at some of the positions there and see how we can help them most effectively approve the best charter schools and the ones that'll be the most successful. There's also some will to look at a possible district that's specific to charter schools. There is still quite a bit of entanglement between the districts and the state authorized charter schools. And there's a lot of challenges with that, a lot of things to work through, such as, a district typically has an elected board, but I think we could figure something out there. The second one I have is K-3 literacy. This one, it kind of comes back every year, and but I think we have a good chance to get, if we are able to work on it, if we're given the time, I think we have a good chance to get something out there on this. I mean, there was lots of bills last session ranging from carrots to sticks and trying to combine those 2 things. And I think that we could probably come up with something really comprehensive if we have the time to work on it, and that's a very important topic. The last one I have is career and technical education and community colleges, and this is kind of my fault. I think this topic was actually supposed to be broader than it's stated in our letter. There was a lot of talk about how do we actually do this more holistically? How do we start learning even the vocabulary of CTE in middle school? And there was a lot of discussion of that about the silo bill for the CTE supplies and materials, and how that could affect middle school. So we wanted to look at it middle school all the way through our community colleges. So we have a full system available for people pursuing the type of career that 60% of the jobs that are open in Wyoming relate to. Those are the 3 I had. I also want to reiterate that, at the beginning of this meeting, it was said that if a committee felt that they needed more than the 4 days, that they could put in a specific request for that. And I really think we do need the 6. I mean, we are a committee who is tasked with overseeing the spending of a very significant portion of our state budget. And I think there's just a lot of things we need to work on. I don't think we can afford to lose those 2 days.
Thank you, Chairman. Discussion.
Mr. Chairman?
Senator Nethercott.
To kind of circle back to maybe refocusing what this meeting could look like and not having the chairman read their letters and walk over their interim topics, which is great, but recognizing we gave them the autonomy to determine what they want. And perhaps our direction that we've given to previous committees, that if you need more time, ask for more time, and we'll evaluate the need for more time at that time and expedite our day potentially, if it's the council's wish, but that's my thoughts. Otherwise, I think we'll have the same meeting we have every year. And there will be no change despite our effort at change. So with that, Mr. Chairman, thank you.
Duly noted. And also, this has taken a grand total of 5 minutes for both of you to give your so you've done really well. So without any further questions from the committee, thank you very much. We look forward to your work. Next for our consideration is natural resource funding. We are at 11:30. Yes, Senator Group, please.
Yep. Towards that end, it's 11:30, and we're scheduled to take a lunch break at 12. There's a number of people I know that are sitting in this audience that have waiting patiently to speak with us in public comment. I would suggest, I'm moving at this time, that we dispense with the reports from the rest of the committees, unless the chairman would like to come and speak to something specific now. After that, take public comment until noon, and then come back after 1 o'clock and finish the rest of our agenda. As the good majority floor leader said, we've given the chairman this prerogative, and we voted to do it. I say let them have it. But if they'd like to come and speak to us about something specific, speak to it now, and then let's take public comment, move on. I would move that at this time.
We have a motion on the floor. Is there a second? Second by Senator Salazar. Any discussion?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Representative Nethercott.
One of the benefits of doing that, I think, is for the folks here that intend to provide public comment that we've acknowledged have driven here all day. They've now been here for 4.5 hours, I think, and it appears if we keep going on the pace that they'll have to stick around for the afternoon after we break for lunch and then provide that testimony sometime mid-afternoon. So I think in respect for those members of the public who've come and traveled this far, and maybe we can allow them to provide that public comment, perhaps a little out of order from their committee assignment, knowing that we can understand its application to these other committees and where it may fall, allow them to provide that testimony, let them get back on the road before the day is through.
Can certainly appreciate the sentiment. Any other discussion? Okay, motion has been properly seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? It's a grand idea. Carries. Okay, Matt, please.
Mr. Chairman, so at your request, LSO is preparing a letter right now to all the chairmen. We've identified right now 9 conflicts among 2 or more committees on interim topic proposals. We are going to ask the chairman to get with their LSO staff, get with the other chairmen of the committees where the conflicts are, resolve those conflicts, work on their interim topics to reduce them as they see necessary to fit within the 4-day schedule, get management council within 2 weeks those revised topics, and then if they can't resolve the conflicts, the letter will say the management council will resolve the conflict for them. And then we will publish those new and approved interim topics after management council receives them.
Very good. Thank you, Matt. Any other discussion? Questions for Mr. Obrecht? All right, with that in mind, we would like to have testimony from folks that would have in specific topics. So if you folks would like to come on up. Chairman Washit, if you would like to maybe help those folks come on up, bring them up. There's 4 seats or 3 seats up there if someone else would like to come up as well.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Chairman Washit, please, Judiciary.
With me this morning are the Holman family, drove up for the meeting today, or down for the meeting today. And I think her testimony is really important, and the Judiciary Committee stands ready to take up this topic if it pleases the Management Council.
Thank you. You can sure welcome to stay there, Art, if you want. Unless we have the rest of the family would like to come up and support or just visit. We're good? Okay, all right. Ms. Holt. Come on ahead. It's all right. If you want to come up and sit, please do. Very good. All right, very good. Please proceed. Please introduce yourself for the folks out on the web, and then please proceed.
My name is Jillian Holman. Mr. Chairman and council members, thank you for taking the time to listen to me. I know you have a busy schedule, so I won't take up much of your time. My name is Jillian Holman. I'm 16 years old and a student at Glen Rock High School. This year, I decided to take a college political science class that taught us how our government works, both at the state and federal levels. When I first walked into this class, I was excited to learn about how the system worked and how I, as a citizen, could play my role, no matter how big or small. I never thought that I would soon be sitting in class every morning, taking notes, trying to figure out how the system that we have could bring me justice. For a year, I was stalked, harassed, and bullied by someone who used anonymous phone numbers, emails, and social media accounts to communicate with multiple people in the community. Many of the texts or emails that were sent were sexual, and all of them were intending to ruin my character or to get me in trouble with parents, coaches, or teachers. For a year, there was a constant stream of messages and a never-ending feeling of being on edge. I didn't know who this person was or why they were so determined to ruin a future I was working hard for. In October of 2024, I was finally told that the person who had been stalking and harassing me was a 40-year-old woman. She lived in my town, chaperoned school events, and had a daughter who was in the same grade as me. I remember saying at one point, because she's an adult and I am a minor, she's going to be in so much trouble. She wasn't. When I found out that the punishment for stalking, no matter the age gap, was only a misdemeanor with up to 1 year of jail time and a $750 fine, I thought that it didn't seem right. It felt unfair. I believe there should at least be a little more punishment because I was a minor and my stalker was an adult. I didn't truly realize how lenient her punishment was until I was driving somewhere and saw a sign that stated littering was also a misdemeanor, carrying up to a $750 fine and could result up to 6 months of jail. If someone were to throw a piece of trash out of the window, they would get almost the same punishment that a 40-year-old woman gets for stalking a child. In the end, my stalker, Marcy Smith, pled no contest and was given 2 years of unsupervised probation along with a few fines. Because I live in a small town and because the laws do not have harsher sentences, I still end up seeing my stalker often, and I still do not feel safe. Even now, my family had to implement a safety plan for this week while I'm here in Cheyenne for state FFA convention, in case she chooses to attend, as she is still allowed to be in the same room as me. At state FFA last year, she impersonated a teenage boy on the trip and sent texts to me that made me feel so unsafe, I never went anywhere alone for fear of being sexually assaulted or raped. The stalking laws in Wyoming have failed to give my family and so many other families true justice and protection. I ask that you amend our Wyoming stalking laws so that an adult stalking a minor with a 3-year or more age difference is a felony, punishable by up to 10 years in prison and up to $10,000 in fines. I'd also like to ask you to consider reviewing House Bill 189, which, if it had been passed in February, would have given me and so many other families true justice. Thank you for your time today. Please know I'm available to answer any other questions you may have. I'm grateful for the opportunity to be an advocate for Wyoming's children, and I hope to bring about change so other families won't have to experience what my family went through.
Thank you, Ms. Holman. We appreciate you taking the time, and for your family as well, for your schedule and coming down here and making your presentation to this committee. The encouraging part of this is you're sitting next to one of the people that's going to be able to help you deal with this and to get a look at our statutes and see what needs to happen. But good Chairman Washut has actually called me or texted me and said, the situation's up. I will take care of it. I will take this up if the Management Council so sees fit. And due to the measures that were just taken previously here in this meeting, our chairman have the ability and the latitude to be able to work directly with you and to take care of that issue now. And so thank you for your courage and for your taking your time to come down here and the courage of your family. And we look forward to working with you, as Chairman Washut does, to make sure that we remedy this and protect the folks that need protecting. And your bravery and willingness to stand up here and to be able to present yourself this way is admirable. And it is it's priceless when it comes to other people that could potentially be harmed in these types of situations. So thank you very much for what you've done. And not what you've gone through, but your courage in dealing the way you have. And so, Chairman Washut, we look forward to you, I would say from my perspective as your House leadership, to doing an incredible job for this family and for these young people and for other folks and potentially be prevented from this happening again. So
I look forward to working with Senator Boner and many others, and I'm a co-chairman in Judiciary. We'll get it done.
thank you, Chairman. Any discussion or questions?
Mr. Chairman.
Representative Yin.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. Ms. Holman?
Yes.
Thanks for being here. Testifying isn't easy. You know, I do think that the committee will take it on, and I look forward to seeing the results of the committee, but you're clearly in an ongoing situation with this person right now. Have you worked to seek a protection order which would help you? What course of action are you taking to make sure that you're protected and continuing from now?
Yes, sir. We got a temporary protection order in October that lasted till we could get a civil case hearing, where we got a protection order that will last 2 to 3 years. The issue is that her daughter is in the same grade as me. So in the protection order, we had to allow it to where she could still be at events at the school so she could be with her daughter. She also has 2 younger sons who are in the same grades as my younger siblings. And so it causes a conflict of interest if we were to not allow her to be anywhere where we were, because her kids would be there, and we still wanted her to have the ability to be present in her children's lives.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. No, I appreciate it.
Good. Any other discussion? Representative Harrelson, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm proud of you. You know, just for you to sit in this position, obviously having walked through what you've walked through, we're so sorry. One of the things that we're constantly dealing with as the legislature is technology outruns statute, right? And so thank you for being a part of this solution, and looking forward to seeing that come to fruition as we go into our next session, and being able to protect you and others down the road. And I just want to, once again, and it sounds like a parrot because everyone's saying it, but we're proud of you. And I think it's really important for people watching online. It doesn't matter your age, you can be part of the solutions. And I'm proud of you for sitting there. And, you know, it's interesting, your parents are sitting in the seats behind you. And you're the one that's up here saying, hey, this is what I need for my people, for myself, and for my generation. And we'll definitely do everything we can to protect you and protect other young ladies and young men like you that are at a point where this is happening. This is a real thing. So definitely appreciate your willingness to stand and be uncomfortable. But at the same time, I just want to give you that confidence to know that you did a great job and that we're really proud of what you're doing today.
Thank you.
Agreed. Any others? Senator Endicott, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ms. Holman, thank you for being here. Did the prosecutor in your case tell you that House Bill 189 would have prevented your crime from occurring?
It would not have prevented my crime from occurring because it started in November of 2023, but it would have provided true justice because of how sexual some of the texts that were sent to me and other individuals, and it would have made the punishment for her a lot more thorough and would help give us peace of mind and other families peace of mind who are also going through the same situation.
Thanks.
Thank you. Okay, thank you for coming. Thank you for taking the time and being patient with us to get to this. So much appreciated. Thank you, Chairman. Okay, any other public testimony on any of the different bills or topics? Sir, please identify yourself and proceed.
The Wyoming Community Service Providers. We are a statewide association that supports people with intellectual and developmental disabilities and acquired brain injuries in essentially, all areas of the state. Here in support of the Joint Appropriations Committee taking up DD rates and rebasing. The rebasing process is actually in statute that requires at least every 4 years for, for rates to be looked at and rebased to determine the real costs of providing these services. The process, I think, is important in that it's a very collaborative and is driven by stakeholders. Providers certainly provide cost data to the consultant to put into their formula, but there's also families and guardians, case managers, state agency officials, and even a couple of legislators who in the past have set in on these rebasings. So taking this up as an interim topic, I think, is critical to continue the support for people with intellectual and developmental disabilities and acquired brain injuries across the state. And, obviously the vulnerable adults that we support are at the core of the need for this to be a topic. But I'm going to include our direct support professionals, the folks, boots on the ground, who are doing this work, who are doing the hard work, often for very little compensation. So with that, and in the interest of everyone's time, I certainly stand for any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Gardner. Any questions for Mr. Gardner? Seeing none, thank you very much. Appreciate your time and coming down here. Any other comments? Treasurer Meyer. Please. We know you, but for the folks out in TV land, if you'd state your name and position, that would be great. Thank you.
I'm Kurt Meyer, the State Treasurer of Wyoming. Thanks for the opportunity. I was in here earlier and you said you weren't going to have any public testimony, so I left and then I came back and now you have public testimony, so that's great. I have one concern is that there was all the other, I think, interim committees, we were notified about when they were going to have their intercommittee meeting. And, but we can't, I guess we have no record of being notified about the management audit committee and their interim topics. But lo and behold, we had a topic that came up that actually affected both our office and WRS. As you know, I'm a voting member on WRS. Has to do with getting contracts or investment contracts from both entities and looking at trying to put in penalty clauses if there's, I guess, a malfeasance of our managers. I can tell you the standard thing that both WRS and we do is that we keep track of the returns and we keep track on a heat chart as far as how they perform in relationship to other managers and to the benchmark. And it's basically, it's a color-coded chart. I think WRS is red, green, yellow. Ours is basically different shades of green. And when they get down to the bottom of that, where it turns white, then essentially our penalty is to defund them. And then after they're defunded, essentially the penalty is to recommend to the SLIB board, who has the authorization to terminate those managers. And so I'm not sure what penalty that we could come up with, that wouldn't be detrimental to our relationship with our managers, on a day-to-day basis of hanging it over their head, whatever that might be. I think the largest penalty you can have is essentially defunding the manager and telling them that they're just not good enough for Wyoming anymore, or whether it's the WRS or whether it's our shop. So it would have been nice to, had that notification so we could have talked to the Management Audit Committee to find out what they were really looking at. But, those provisions are in there, they're in the contracts. Essentially, if they change their philosophy in what they're doing, if they change their management style, if they do anything in those regards there and it's really exhibited in lower returns, we basically defund them and they're no longer our managers. So I think I know it's not their top priority, it's down on the list of ways, but it's one of those things that had they just came to us and talked to us, or we would have known about that process of which is normal with the rest of the interim committees, then we could have said, hey, we don't know what's broken. It's because really nothing's really broke. Both those entities, WRS and the State Treasurer's Office, are #1 in the nation in different years. 5 years with WRS as far as that time period investments, and 3 years with the State Treasurer's Office. We're the highest performing fund in the nation. So I'm trying to figure out what malfeasance they're trying to identify, if with both WRS and the State Treasurer's Office has beaten their benchmarks for 5 to 6 years in a row. And so those are things that if you're looking for a problem, the problem doesn't necessarily exist, and it's exhibited by the performance of both those funds. And essentially that we already have in place the mechanisms through both the WRS board and the SLIB board and the internal management of both entities to get rid of managers if they're not doing their job. And so from my perspective, I'm kind of baffled about why I have to talk to you guys about this today, because essentially if there's any problem that goes on, we just essentially fire them, terminate them. And it goes through, and that's the process that we do. Take the money away from them, tell the SLIB board to fire them, or tell the WRS board to fire them. So anyway, that was something that was kind of interesting that came up in this process. I didn't want to show up to you guys today because I never had a chance to talk to the chairman of that. I reached out to at least one of the chairmen I know, but hadn't gotten anything back.
Thank you, Treasurer Meyer. Representative Bear first, and then Senator Drew.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for being here, Mr. Treasurer. I'm pretty sure all of those committees are noticed when they're doing that right toward the end of the session. If we didn't get a notice out for that, that's disappointing, so.
Well, like
hopefully
my
we.
office didn't tell me about it, and they didn't know about it, so.
Sure.
You know, we just didn't think that there was anything that, I guess, whatever.
I do have a question for you, sir, Mr. Chairman.
Proceed, Representative Bear.
You had stated that you simply defund these particular managers.
Yeah.
But defunding, in my mind, means that you're taking funds out of the funds that have been invested. And typically, there's a penalty. And I think to answer your question, why was this brought about? We're in a court case right now with Vanguard and BlackRock and State Street because they have investment policies that are contradictory to our major revenue sources. And so I think that's where this comes from, if I may speak for the chairman of that committee. But, if we're going to defund them, I got to ask you, what is the thought process around whatever penalties are in the contract? I mean, how do you work around that? Does that mean that we're going to defund them after the penalty period is expired? Does that affect, what the policy is intended to do? Or how do you deal with that if there are penalties? And I think that's what the study is actually trying to get to the bottom of.
Treasurer Meyer?
What I'm trying to communicate here is that the penalty actually is taking the money away from them, so they're no longer basically employed by the state of Wyoming. Now, in the case of BlackRock, they had a $150 million fund that I think was small caps, and I think there's some international funds involved in that we actually moved in-house. But it took us about a year to actually look at the quantitative and quantamental investment firms that process that we were doing in-house. So we were comfortable taking that money out of BlackRock. So we took all that money out of BlackRock because we were actually making anywhere from 150 to 200 basis points more than BlackRock was making. And BlackRock wasn't doing a good job. So we said, well, what can we do to actually get that money out? And we couldn't find another investment person that we wanted to use, but we did have that ability to actually do in-house. And so that's what we did. We took it apart from there. Now, we still have a private equity portion sleeve in BlackRock, which we basically asked them that we want to get out of that. And that takes a while to run off because you don't want to have a fire sale on private equity. And so that's in the area of getting run off. Now that's particularly to BlackRock. Then we also have areas where we have two law firms that are out there on a contingency basis that continue to look at, I guess it would be wrongdoing by all the different parties that are in the investment industry. And essentially, they'll bring things to us where they know that we have an exposure or had an exposure at some point in time where these companies had actually done something illegal, whether it was an SEC violation, it was a violation of a European law, and they'll come to us and say, this is what we think your exposure is. We do an analysis as far as, okay, we had this many shares of stock in this company for this long, and then they have to prove that the allegations, against that company, and then we look at it and make that determination like you would with any other contingency case, whether or not we move forward. So not only we have that internal thing, there's actually attorneys that are out there that are researching any illegalities from any of these companies and moving forward on that. And then the other areas that we try to, I think, modify the way that different companies are working is with some of the the different organizations that we belong to, and the State Financial Officers Foundation is one of them. And I can get you a whole copy of the different letters that we have sent out supporting these lawsuits and supporting regulatory changes, at the national level to get these people back to where they should be doing what we feel that they should as far as representing the interests of the states. And one of the things that you guys actually did in the last session was to really make it clear that in our separately managed accounts, you don't necessarily talk about the separate managed accounts, but allows us much more control to have a separately managed accounts and rather than commingling those funds, those investment funds, with other entities. And so we can actually fine tune what we consider is the, I guess it would be the proper way and the philosophy that these individuals are going to manage the state's money. And so those are things that we do.
Representative Bear? If not, Senator Drew.
Mr. Chairman, yes, a follow-up if I may. Thank you, Mr. Treasurer. I just don't want to conflate what the study topic is in regards to punishment or penalties for managers that do not follow our policy versus penalties that the state would incur by the defunding that you described. So that penalty, was discussed quite extensively during this last session in regards to how we deal with these corporations or these investment firms. We are incurring penalties if we try to pull our funds out. That's where you talked about a 1-year period. I assume that was also thinking about the penalties of getting our money out of that particular firm. So if we're entering into contracts where there's a penalty that the state would incur that would mitigate our return on investment, then shouldn't we also, and I think that's what the study topic is, shouldn't we also have something in the contract that says if you're going to go against our policy, you would have to cover that penalty?
Well, Mr. Chairman, through you, I don't believe that we have any specific penalties as far as early withdrawal on some of these things. The reason that we do a lot of things and we implement it in stages is to make sure that we've got somebody, I guess, identified, because it does take quite a while to actually get a manager onboarded. In our case, a lot longer than it takes WRS to get a manager onboarded. It could take us several months to get a manager onboarded through the process that we have. WRS can do it in a relatively short period of time. So, the loss that we incur is having that money invested with a company that necessarily isn't getting the returns that we think they should have. But we basically have really, I would say, put in place a tracking system for these managers when they start not performing to the level that we think that they should. Then that allows us to kick into these things and actually try to identify that early on enough that we don't lose that much money, from having basically, I'd say a Class B or Class C managers to getting a Class A manager. And so that's what we do, and we like to try to do it in-house because we know what we're capable of doing. And so that's where I would say that there's no necessarily early withdrawal penalties like a CD or something like that from my perspective. Basically, we have the ability to start defunding these people, the day after we put the funds in, if something comes up that we think is going to be detrimental to our returns.
Very good. Senator Drew.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Treasurer, thanks for being here. I actually was going to ask you if you had a chance to talk to the chairman of the committee. But actually now that got answered, so now just kind of change to a quick little statement about it. At 11:30, we said, hey, we're going to take some public comment and then we're going to go on to lunch and dispense with any more discussion. Look at what we've done in that half hour. We found out a specific concern from a family, very courageous young woman, comes up, gives us talk, and we give her specific relief for the committee. And then we got the good treasurer come up, and he found out, has a vague idea now where that amendment or where that thing came up for management audit. So now he knows who to talk to, And so we found out a lot in the last half hour and did a lot of good work. So thank you, Mr. Treasurer.
And Mr. Gardner.
Good job, Mr. Chairman. Thanks.
Any other? We are at that 12 o'clock hour, so Senator Nethercott?
Mr. Chairman, just a bit of indulgence here to the Judiciary Committee and to the members who came to testify regarding their terrible experience. What I would like the Judiciary Committee to specifically focus on, and I want to make it very clear that I respect all the prosecutors in our state and the discretion that they have to employ, and I in no means can step in their shoes and understand the challenging and complex facts that they have to evaluate when presented with what is a very complex factual crime that occurred. But what I want the committee to look at with this topic is why the prosecutor didn't charge the felony crime as Wyoming statute 64303B2, which is a person is guilty of sexual exploitation of a child if for any purpose he knowingly causes, induces, entices, or coerces a child to engage in sexual conduct. So I think a question for the committee to answer is whether or not this frustrating experience with the criminal justice system is as a result of a lack of Wyoming law addressing this crime, or if it is prosecutorial discretion. And again, I respect all the prosecutors in our state, and I'm not here to challenge that decision that was made. But the need to create additional crimes is always a question that we have to ask ourselves, as opposed to prosecutorial discretion. So with that, Mr. Chairman, thank you. That's my directive to the Judiciary Committee. Thank you.
Senator Pappas? Absolutely. We try not to shut off the senators or top 5 electeds or anybody for that matter. Please proceed, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Senator Stephen Pappas, District 7. I'm the co-chairman of the Joint Transportation, Highways, and Military Affairs Committee. And I'm not here since you've decided not to allow us to present our topics, which is great. But I did have some comments that I was going to share with you regarding your actions this morning. Probably won't be one of your favorite today, but I do believe that your actions in cutting down the interim days is short-sighted. I believe that what you've done, and I think that the comments that Representative Haroldson said, mentioned earlier, that the interim is really the days that we spend in committee, joint committee in the interim, are educational days. And I have a committee that has numerous new members. And in order to bring them to speed in 4 days is going to be difficult. We're going to do it. I had planned on a meeting in Sheridan, and we were going to do a tour of YDOT facilities, and we had a meeting in Douglas where we were going to tour the Camp Guernsey. I will abide by the 4 days, and we will cut out those tours, and we'll probably move them to Casper. There's no reason to go to those two communities if we're not going to do the tours. And if the council is hell-bent on saving money, then I'm glad to abide by your decision. We'll move to the 2 meetings to Casper and 1 meeting in Cheyenne. I believe that the decision is short-sighted in 3 ways. Number 1, it cuts out 1/3 of our educational time, which I think is very important. I don't think there's enough. I always argued with Senator Scott about this. He always said we do too much in the interim. I frankly don't think we do enough to educate our people, especially with the high turnovers that we have. Number 2, we've cut out 1/3 of the time that the public can now interface with us. Sure, they can testify by Zoom, so that's not the same as going to their committees. And number 3, now we're going to bring these meetings to Cheyenne and to Casper, for the most part, in order to save money. Those committees, those
Chairman.
other communities will, while it's not that big, will have less economic impact. And Cheyenne and Casper will pick up that economic impact.
Mr. Chairman, just to save time, Chairman Pappas,
Senator Nethercott.
the council has not directed the committees to only have their meetings in Cheyenne or Casper. That was a point of discussion, but that is not a directive to the committee chairman. So if you choose to have a meeting in Sheridan, you can go right ahead. Out of the 14 members of your committee, only 3 are new. I would challenge you that you probably have the most experienced committee in the legislature. So evaluate that carefully.
Mr. Chairman.
Senator
Yes,
Pappas.
they're new to the committee and to transportation issues, many of them. And to the point of, yes, I can have the meeting anywhere we would want. You give us that latitude, as you've given us the latitude on our topics as well. And I appreciate that. But I understand the thinking of the committee, the council. Why would I go to Sheridan? Why would I go to Douglas if I'm not going to do the tours? So yes, we could still go there, but it makes no sense. Anyhow, for those points, I just wanted to share my opinion that maybe the solution, if we're wanting to actually give the council more direction as well, perhaps we should dispense with all interim committee meetings and go with a series of task forces on specific subjects. Take the money that we spend on interim committee meetings and let's fund some task forces on, we're going to have a heavy lift in transportation. Well, our number one topic is funding. Not so sure we're going to do it much justice in a few days, but maybe a task force would. So if possibly an idea for thought is just get rid of the interim joint standing committee meetings and fund a series of task forces for specific issues that are important to the Management Council. Just a thought. Thank you,
Senator Pappas.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
One thing I would say too is it was also with that declaration was the opportunity for chairs to be able to come back if they knew there was not enough time to appropriately take care of their issues. Then they certainly have the latitude to be able to say, hey, listen, folks, we need more time. I need another meeting. And then that would be a consideration of the council and say, I would say this council would be very amenable to that. But that option is definitely there for each one of the chairmen, and the ability to have that latitude was also in the consideration of that.
Yes, understood, Chairman.
Representative Bear, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Senator Pappas, thank you for sharing your testimony, your compassion about this issue. I appreciate it and agree with you. Just this last session, we had a $70 million influx of funding to your area of expertise for your committee, and yet we are years behind the $400 million funding gap for what is truly essentially a government responsibility. And so I too agree that your committee really needs to do the good work to ensure that we're looking at what the government's responsibility is and making sure it's properly funded and properly applied with those funds. So appreciate your sharing that, and I think your question about the task force is certainly a solution, but I think this committee said that basically we're giving you carte blanche to figure out how you want to spend that budget. So maybe that is the best solution for this very important issue.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And to that point, and the reason why I thought that this is really a knee-jerk reaction to exactly what Representative Bear mentioned earlier. We only had a 14% drop in the number of bills passed, right, from 67 to 53. And I agree with Representative Bear that that's probably because of what happened, and it won't happen again. I don't think you'll see that. So I really think that the interim work was important, and I think cutting it by 1/3 was a knee-jerk reaction. My opinion only. Thank you.
Well, we do appreciate your opinion, Senator. Thank you for coming. Any other discussion? Public discussion? Representative Chairman Locke.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Council, and this is just a question that I have for, so I guess I didn't fully understand the motion that you voted on. Are we going to continue with our reviews after lunch, or are chairman for the ones that have not spoken yet going to have the opportunity to speak? I guess that's my question.
I'll let the bringer of the motion clarify that for you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My motion was to dispense with any further reading of the topics. So you're free to come and go, but also to come up and, I'll say to come up and speak to us now if you wanted to. And I'm sure if the chair, if you wanted time after lunch, if the chair wanted to give that latitude, I'm sure he would do so.
Thank you, Senator. So just real quickly, I just want to speak on behalf, at least my opinion on the Revenue Committee. I definitely, and I'm going to echo much of what the senator who just mentioned. I think for the Revenue Committee, I don't think the issue is timing for quality versus quantity. I think the issue is focus. And we're comfortable with a focus on quality versus quantity, absolutely in favor of that. That being said, we have a lot of hot topics. We have some very young members on the House side, and I just want to throw my 2 cents out there. I believe that the Revenue Committee is going to need their 6 days. And I just wanted to put that out to the entire council and thank you and request that. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, council, for listening.
Yep, thank you. Senator McEwen.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to speak real quick. I believed earlier we just switched the agenda around. It was a pretty hard motion to follow. We have a couple really time-sensitive items coming up as we look at tax reform. One of them's Amendment A, one of them's a People's Initiative, one of them is what the effects are going to be on the budget. And we put together a very solid 6-day program, and we'd like to follow through with that. And I just wanted to let you know why. I'm not just asking for the extra 2 days. There's some solid reason behind it. And last year, the Revenue Committee only spent $35,000 out of the 50 we were allocated. So could we have the 15 back? Just a lot to do as we go through tax reform. And since we're not going to get to speak and we're asking for the extra 2 days, I just want to throw the big nuggets out there as you guys discuss it. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Chairman. Any others would like to discuss? Questions? Ms. Herman. Please state your name. Well, we know you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And just to clarify, would this be the proper time if I had comments that addressed the Legislative Process Committee? Would this be the time to bring that up or later in the meeting?
This would be the time.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Marguerite,
Mr. Obert?
Marguerite, is it about what we discussed?
Yes.
Let's talk about that this afternoon, if you'll be around.
Oh, and that's fine, Mr. Chairman. That's why I asked.
Okay.
Yep.
Whether I was missing my window. But
Yeah.
okay,
Yeah.
well, thank you.
You bet.
We'll
All
see
right.
you later.
Yes,
Thank you.
that's fine. Any others addressing specifically topics, interim topics? Seeing no others? Okay, ladies and gentlemen, it is 12:15. We will take a break for, what is the attitude of the committee? How long do you want for lunch? You want an hour? Hour's good? Okay, in an effort to try to expedite this afternoon, 1 hour, we'll be back here at 1:15 and take up the remainder of the agenda. Thank you all.